Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, we aim to entertain, inform, and promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the hobby. The Scale Model Podcast is recorded bi-weekly and is available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, as well as on our website at scalemodelpodcast.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider leaving a review. It does help to get our shows out to more modelers. We also publish extra video content and complete episodes on our YouTube channel. Feel free to like and subscribe to the Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Scale Model Podcast. There's also a Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Scale Model Podcast.
Welcome
Your
to
Patreon support helps us cover hosting costs,
sponsored by
and gives
Goodman
you access to
My
extra
name is Stuart
content
Clark, and
as
I'm
well as
here,
prize giveaways.
virtually here, less than a mile from Goodman Heavy Industries, where my co-host resides, deep in his basement, where he is the president, chief bottle washer, chief dishwasher, gopher, general all-around, undergardener, etc., etc. Did I miss anything? Probably a few things.
Garbage man.
Garbage man, that's right.
Someone's got to clean up.
Mr. Anthony Goodman. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Stuart. How are you this evening?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's a Monday, and we have an absolute ton of stuff up in this show, so we're looking forward to it. So we're just gonna get right to it.
Sure.
So first of all, we're gonna thank our latest Patreon supporters. We have 4 new people who are very good friends of the podcast now.
Thank you.
We have Alan, Paul, James, and Hector, and thank you for your support. And if you want to get in on this and become a good friend of the podcast, just reach out to patreon.com/Scale Model Podcast. Your support is appreciated. We use the funds to pay our hosting costs, as well as bring some awesome giveaways and get them into the mail, as well as exclusive content and advanced content for our Patreon supporters. We're going to talk a little bit about something along those lines a little bit later in the podcast. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of Patreon exclusive giveaways, we're leading our latest news. We had our FlexiFile Mega Prize. So our good friends at FlexiFile, which we should point out, you often show up at shows because you vend the super sanding blocks with them.
Yeah, they're a vendor of mine, and they're just great people, and
they're absolutely great. And their table's one of the most dangerous tables to free you from your wallet at any model show. It's usually the place I go.
I love their products. They're so interesting and unique.
Yeah.
Paul is a guy that is on my list to talk to. And you know what? He actually was a really great, a little bit of a mentor to helping me out getting my tool product out there. And Lindsay, she also does a lot of the stuff, and she was gracious enough to send us some pretty cool products for this giveaway. And I do a lot of demos at their tables for the Super Sanding Block.
I've met them both over the years. Truly great people. So we have the FlexiFile Flex set. So this is we got a mega prize. So it consists of the FlexiFile Flex set, which includes the flexible sanders, a FlexiFile, the triple grit polisher and finisher, plus that's not all, the genuine micro brush applicators, the assorted 40 pack. I was using one. I actually used one of those last night. I was filling in a little bit of filler, and there's just a perfect thing for those things. I use their stuff all the time. Yeah. So I took all our Patreon supporters, including our new 4, just a few minutes ago, through. I got a total, assigned a number to each of them, threw them into random.org, and supervised by our official studio kitties, Marley and Charlie, who also work for some kitty and kitty accounting firm. I picked a winner.
They were Blackfire.ca minions.
Well, they're a bit of both. They're also studio kittios. They would all, just like Mr. Sparkles over there, keeps you in line. Yep. So our winner is, and I hope I'm saying this right, Ethan Eidenmill. So Ethan, I will be reaching out with you. Either myself or Anthony will get to shipping address, and we will wing those on their way on the normal Friday mail call. Yes, from Goodman Models. So
and that actually, congratulations. That's an awesome pack. Mail is going out this Friday, actually. So that would be I don't know what the date is. I don't even know what today is. But anyway,
No,
this
he doesn't know what today is. That's fine. He'll live.
there's a lot of
He'll
stuff going on.
Exactly. So yeah, we'll make sure we get that out to you. And as I say, we will reach out with with your email address, and we'll get a shipping address for you, and then and we'll go from there. So.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we also want to carry on with WantaFest was an absolutely huge success. As you know, we talked about that last week. They were expecting, I think I heard like 1,000 entries or like 1,000 pictures and all that, and they got pretty well overwhelmed. I think I heard 2,500, something like that, on the last check.
We are going to have a follow-up with George Stevenson, one of the key organizers of WantaFest. I did speak with him briefly. I was trying to leave him alone because they were just dealing with all the the contest details. But we are going to have sort of a wrap-up and post-contest interview and kind of just talk about how it all went down, talk about the winners a little bit, and just see how the process went for those guys. But we'll give the guy a second to breathe, right?
Well, exactly. A couple of days at least. But yeah, I have been posting information from the show because we were happy to support them all through the weekend when the show was on. So we have posted a lot of the links to the Facebook gallery links and all that. I will post them again on the show notes. Again, just some amazing work. The miniature bus and that just blow me away.
Oh, it's incredible. Right?
Yeah, it just, I always, every year I see those and it just absolutely blows me away. Some amazing work, and I guess the virtual vendors hall did quite well. I saw some Facebook comments about people saying, well, at least I saved on travel, and that meant I could spend a bit more. At least that's the excuse I'm telling my wife. I heard that a few times. So
I thought it was great.
Yeah. No, looked absolutely great. Also, in other news, we talked about this, about Wingnut Wings, and there was a very good article from a reporter, David Winter, who also runs the World War I modeling forum. Our good friends at On the Bench, they actually did an interview with him on the last show. So one of the cool things was they kind of had a very nice interview about that story that he explained behind the scenes, and it's really worth a listen if you want to hear more about it. So definitely check that out. We're putting the link to the Modeler Forum and to the actual On the Bench episode, but you guys should be listening. You guys should be listening to it anyway on the bench because they're a fine quality podcast.
But we always like to give a shout out to our friends, right?
Yep, exactly. So, shout out to them, and of course, a shout out to our friends in Kentucky at Plastic Model Mojo. But we'll talk about them a little bit later as well. Exactly. Okay, to the mailbag. One of our new Patreon supporters, James, he just sent a really nice note saying, "Hello, I heard about your podcast while listening to On the Bench. I really enjoy your podcast and listen to it while building. I'm proud to support your podcast and appreciate your effort. Thanks, guys." Well, thank you very much, James, and we hope we continue to give you some good quality content. Then I got one here from Brandon Walters. He said, I wanted to share these helping hands I picked up in March from eBay. And again, there'll be a picture on the show notes. They're great for holding wire steady for soldering, the designed use, as well as serving as a drying rack for fiddling bits and things that can easily be set down. To use something similar. Now, when I put a picture there in the show notes. When he first talked to me about it, he hadn't sent the picture, and I was thinking of something slightly different. These were the helping hands that had the little magnifying glass and
that traditional one where it has
this is a cool one. This one has 4 or 5, and they're all on like flexible little arms, so you can really adjust things.
There's a name. These are really I've seen these around before. They're like flexible tubes where they're quite robust, and you can really reef them around.
I've seen them on like camera tripods and stuff like that.
People mount lights to them, but he's got
this is a very cool one.
Clips.
This
amazing.
Is very cool. I'll have to look into that. So I haven't got this one, but I might have to consider it. So that's very cool.
I have one of the that typical traditional helping hands where you have the lead weight bottom and then the two.
That's the one I have.
I think those it's not a bad thing to have, but it's not as useful as you would like it to be. I always used it to solder wires, but I took the magnifier off because it was kind of clunky. But when I'm doing soldering, having that one, you got to clip a couple things, boom, it works really great. But this other thing looks way more
Well, I could see. I was thinking of you when I first saw it because some of the LED work you're doing, the electrical work.
Oh yeah, it is. It's you got to be able to clamp a couple things down.
Yeah.
But actually, it was one of the members gave me that, donated, or he just wanted to unload it, the helping hands from IPMS. Yep. And I gladly took it, and I do use it. But this one looks way more robust, and I think like as a drying rack for parts.
Well, yeah, people use it like that. Like I do something similar. I have alligator clips on little tiny bamboo spears.
I have the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I just have them, stuck into a corrugated box. But for wiring and that, I could see this. So, we're gonna have to find out. Brandon, you're gonna have to let us know where you got this. You said you got it from eBay. I'll have to look it up and see what a search. You picked it up, in March from eBay. So very, very cool. We appreciate that. We got a little look at your bench there, and we always like seeing what people are doing and ideas, because again, it's all about sharing with the community and things like that. Sharing. Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely awesome. Okay, latest hobby announcements. People think modelers slow down in June. No.
We're just ramping up.
We just ramp up. Absolutely.
I wanted to do more giveaways, but Stuart said no. He said,
we're gonna ramping up. We're just doing here, there, and everywhere. So we're gonna start off with from AK, their June releases. As always, they come out with an absolute ton of stuff. So first off is a new book for German armor fans, 1944 German Armor in Normandy, Camouflage Profile Guide. Both English and Spanish is all their titles. 112 pages, about €20. And again, if you're into German armor, particularly after June 6, 1944, which was D-Day,
which just happened for the anniversary.
This is the title for you. And again, looks like richly illustrated. Lots of color prints, lots of details, just amazing. There's 190 color profiles here.
This is really impressive.
Yeah, their books are just awesome, and if you're really into it, and there's so many different camouflage schemes.
It's unbelievable how many, like how much, I don't know if it was like freedom by the crews to just do whatever, or if they were told. Like it's quite varied, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So that's definitely worth checking out. Next we have, it's called Extreme Reality 4, and this one's called Old and Forgotten. 136 pages, about €24. So they basically say realism is the ultimate goal that every modeler wishes to reach. The Extreme Reality collection shows how this can be achieved. So this is basically a step-by-step thing on how to bring models to life so they can really look realistic. So they've got a few things here, like a dump truck that's rusting away, an old Sherman that's got it's been kind of taken over and used for graffiti artists. Some back to basic stuffs like a London bus that's been converted. Some really cool things. So again, very neat that if you want just some more tips on very realistic results. And they say here, from a pinball machine through a gas pump, from the mythical Route 66 to an old and rusty truck. So again, looks like a very nice guide for that.
Yeah, these are really cool.
Yep,
I've got a couple of the Weathering magazine, which I know this is not part of that exact series, but they are really, even if it's not the exact subject that you're modeling, it still gives you really great ideas about how things should look, and then you can run with those ideas and start looking at, for example, construction equipment as you walk by, or like a construction site, and then kind of seeing how those things look in reality. And between the two, you can get a pretty good picture of what you want to accomplish with your modeling.
Exactly. Okay, moving on. A couple of paint sets based on their third generation acrylics, which I understand a couple of stores are starting to get now, at least in our area. I know Wheels and Wings Hobbies has it, and apparently some people have tried brush painting. It's quite nice.
Oh, really?
I'll have to get my filthy mitts on some just to check it out. But this one here is, the first one's the non-metallic metal gold set. So this contains 6 different gold colors. And the idea is this is applying gold metallic finishes using their NMM, which is the non-metallic metal technique. Because they're acrylics, they can be easily mixed, allowing for the hassle-free creation of smooth transitions between lights and shadows. They can they're applied by brush, but of course they can also be airbrushed. These are lacquer. So the set contains ivory, sand yellow, ice yellow, Sahara yellow, purple, and whole red. And again, they're showing some examples on how to use it there.
And isn't it interesting that these are matte finish paints, right? But you're trying to represent something that's inherently glossy. Isn't that cool how they do it? It's a different approach, I think, to metallic.
Exactly. Well, they've got a huge color range in this Series 3. So, for example, the next one's the pastels set, they're calling it. So again, designed to apply a lot for like fantasy figures and that for various pastel colors. So they got some examples here on like an elf and something else here.
Yeah, like a science fiction-y kind of robot
like a science
or something.
fiction, yep. And then you've got a metallics set, they're calling it, with soup that contains 6 acrylic paints with superfine metallic pigment. So here's your metallics. Here's your range here. Gold, brass, copper, silver, natural steel, and gunmetal. I'm always curious to see how well some of the new acrylics do. Because the metallics, like I know some of the Vallejo stuff I've been playing with, it's just amazing what they can do now. Where in the old days you'd be using acrylics for everything except metallic. Then you go to something like an enamel or something, or a lacquer. But now some of these new ones apparently get really good results.
I can see this being very appealing to figure, bust, and gaming modelers.
Oh, definitely.
Because I think a lot of those people aren't necessarily interested in airbrushing and getting into that and getting set up for it. But obviously, everyone has a use for metallic.
Well, and again, from what I heard from one person at an IPMS, it was IPMS Toronto meeting I attended via Zoom. They were very happy with the brush performance. So there you go. And I'm sure some of it, like I know a store near us, Forbes Hobbies, that do miniatures and that they carry AK, and I'm sure some of their people are going to start. So there's also a white set, 6 different colors of white and grays. And then moving on, here's something you might be interested in: coarse sanding pads. So this is some of their new sanding sponges. So this one's they're smaller ones, a super flexible, high quality sanding sponge, resists jamming, it folds, and they have the color on the side of the sponge, which represents the grit color.
Right, so like a sandwich.
So they start with a red at 120, then there's a medium at 220, which is a yellow. And then the fine looks like it's a gray or something.
These look awesome. You can't have too many different
super fine
sanding files, like the super sanding blocks, of course. I mean, I use a really wide range of stuff all the time, and of course they do. You kind of wear out stuff, but these look kind of awesome.
And they got a mix pack too, and the price is good. So they have a variety pack, which is one of each. So 122, 220, 400, and 800 for €4.25. That's very reasonable.
10 or 12.
I'll multiply by about 1.5.
Okay, so not quite. Maybe $10.
Yep, not too bad at all. Okay, moving on. We're talking about painting clips. So here's some metal painting clips.
Oh yeah.
So the idea of the alligator clips or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Now these ones they're actually coated with a plastic layer, which is kind of nice, because you get your alligator clips and they can be a little bit savage, shall we say? I usually put tape or something on them.
Yes.
My wife used to use tool dip, that you could put like ends of tools. And I keep wanting to try that. I got to find it again and try that.
I've seen that stuff.
Yeah. So this one looks like there's 20 in there, and it's €15. So that looks cool. And then they've got some stuff from MIG Productions. Looks like some resin stuff. Is this resin?
Footprints.
Footprints. Yeah, this is a flexible resin, so it makes footprints by pressure. So right and left foot made of polyurethane resin to make footprints by pressure,
like
and right and left foot, of rubber to make by stamping. They recommend oil paints. So they've got looks like a whole bunch of different ones. So you've got the civilian casual sneakers, modern Russian boot prints, and these are about €10 a piece. American modern boots.
Oh man, you don't get
Russian
all the different ones.
II. Yeah, they're all different ones. No, they're all separate, of course, right? Second World War boots, American World War II, because there is a difference, and people will notice.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the price, and
Yeah, I know.
so basically
I know.
for $10 you get a pair of prints. You don't like.
You get
It'd be
4.
better if it was a set of modern
Yeah.
or a set
Yeah,
of
you
at least
basically
a set
get
of two.
you basically get a pair made out of resin and a pair made out of rubber.
But it's a cool idea though, because
Yeah,
I
it's an
mean,
interesting concept.
most vehicles that have any kind of dirt or wear,
Yeah.
you see some boot scuffs and prints, and
Yeah.
I like
So,
it. It's a cool detail.
I
It
think
looks like
including the sneaker ones work well because a lot of modern conflict it's civilian soldiers or militia, and you look
yeah.
at some of them and that's what they're all wearing their sneakers and track pants, So
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, and that's it. That's it from AK. They had an absolute ton of stuff as
Interesting
always.
stuff.
Let me just move on here. I've skipped by a couple here. Let me just load those up, and that way I remember. This is all TACOM's got some really cool things, and 3 items in particular I want to point out. So we're going to start with TACOM's got 2 tanks in the 1/16th big scale. There's a lot more of these being released. Now these are smaller tanks, so this is the Panzer I. So basically, it comes in 2 boxings, one with a figure and one without. I don't know why, but there you go. But 1/16, so it's still a fair size. So one includes a figure from Hasegawa.
Okay.
So one of the very early German tanks appeared in 1936. So yeah, but again, there's demand for that. But so 2 boxes. So the only difference is the extra figure. 4 different markings, photo etch parts inside, workable tracks, and all hatches can be opened or closed. Doesn't have an interior. But it's a small, for 1/16th, it's a smaller tank, but still, it'll be fine. Like it's still doable. Like when you see those people with those giant Tigers or ones, and those are just huge. This one will probably work out to be a size of like a 1/35th Abrams or something.
It's almost like a tank head, eh?
Yeah, these were a tiny tank. I think there's only a 2-person crew. So that's going to be coming out in July.
Now the figure you get, is that a tank commander?
Yeah, it's a tanker figure. So it's Hasegawa.
Is it meant that you could mount him in the hatch?
I don't know. It looks like you could. It looks like it's the full figure, so maybe you could mount him beside. I think it gives you that option.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah. Monstro scale.
Mm-hmm. So moving on, we've got 2 small-scale mine rollers in 1 box from TACOM, also in July. So one's called the Krupp Romner, and one's called the KFZ 617.
Oh, these things, yeah.
So these were old mine rollers from the Second World War.
Now, is this a reboxing? Because the Krupp, these came out before. I've seen these around.
Well, I don't know if they've been in this scale, though. Like, I know I've seen the Krupp Romer was available in 1/35th.
Yes, it's huge, too.
I haven't seen it in 1/72nd now. They're probably, but yeah. So again, some cool looking things. Again, it's also suitable for maybe some sci-fi conversion or whatever. So
it has that. It has like a Luft 46. I know Luft is not the right one, but it has that kind of like paper Panzer look to it.
Yeah, you could certainly see this trudging along the moon or Mars or something. Because they do have that base on the far side of the moon, right?
Right, in 1947.
Yeah, exactly. They went from the base in Antarctica. That's it exactly. So anyway, that's in 1/72nd, and that's coming out in July. And then one last one, again, 2 kits in 1 boxing, 1/72nd scale. They're featuring a Chieftain Mark V and an FV 432 Mark II. These are both British releases. So one's, of course, a battle tank, and one's their infantry fighting vehicle. Yeah. So the Chieftain was previously released in this scale. So again, that smaller scale, almost for wargaming, whatever. But these look very, very detailed. So this would be like the equivalent of the British. What was it? 113, whatever. M113.
Yeah, it's an M113.
Yeah, basically.
That's that same kind of roll.
Same idea.
Taxi cab roll.
Yeah, basically. And then they've also announced the Merkava 2D main battle tank used by the Israelis in 1/35th scale. Mm-hmm. So this was introduced in April 1983. It incorporated numerous small adjustments as a result. of the previous year's incursion into Lebanon. I know we talked about this when they were first talking about this coming out, but these are now going to be available in July. And again, it's a very futuristic looking tank.
Yeah, I've noted these over the years. They're just incredibly interesting looking, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of different uses you could put them to. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, moving on. So we have Tamiya's June releases. Where did I put Tamiya? You know, I have so much stuff here. I don't even know where I put Tamiya's June releases. They're like everywhere. Where is Tamiya? There they are. Tamiya's June releases. They got a lot of stuff in June. They got a lot of RC stuff. A couple of static models. They're re-releasing the 112th Big Porsche 934 Valiant, 112th Honda CBR Fireblade motorcycle. For the car guys, a 124th Ford Mustang GT4 and racing livery, a 135th Russian KV-1 heavy tank, the 1941 early production.
Oh, yeah.
Another bike, some details for the one bike, a front fork set. But most interesting, if you look down to tools and paints, they've got a new spray color. They've got their new cobalt green.
Yes.
But they've also got these brand new tweezers. And again, we love tools. So these are high grade tweezers with the grip type tip. So these ones are kind of designed for RC, but the idea is it can pick up small parts without them going ping.
Yeah, it's fluted.
Yeah,
it has like a V groove built into each blade of the.
Yeah. Well, it's V prongs and a groove. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I got to have a set of these, I think.
Yeah. So it allows you to grab parts such as 3mm differential balls and small diameter shafts. So again, designed for the RC crowd, but
yes.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be on my list too.
Everyone can use it. You know what? You deserve it. You get yourself a set.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's what I think. They've also got a couple of other things on the tool side. They've got these, I think we talked about, they had some other ones before, the modeling templates. So these are the square ones, 1 to 10 millimeters. So you can basically use them as masks or whatever.
Yeah, and that idea works really well.
Yeah, so you can engrave it too. So the idea is, you can engrave it, whatever. And they've also got a new mark fit. So their decals are, they've now got a super strong one.
Ooh.
So very powerful now. Yeah, this one almost scares me. So used to help fit decals to tricky surface shapes with a great finish achieved in quick time. Take care when using, as it may melt affected painted surfaces, especially acrylic paints. In other words, put a really good non-acrylic.
Do you use a paintbrush, or do you use the provided?
I've used both. I used the regular mark fit, and I've used both. The paintbrush, the supplied one's pretty good.
Yeah, like when you're applying it, I have a dedicated, fine tipped.
Oh yeah, I have one too.
Brush I use.
Yeah, I have one too for my microsole and set, and I also wash it, and then it's used for the mark fit. But most of the time, I get away with using the one built into the cap because I can take most of the stuff off, and I can get a lot of control. But yeah, I will use it in tighter areas. But yeah, so this one is definitely super strong. So I'm sure some people will find uses for it. But yeah, it's not the kind of thing you use every day. But I love that warning.
Thicker. Yeah.
All
thicker
of a sudden
decals, right?
Through your tank. Yeah.
Or if you notice the example there where they have a number going over top of like a fitting.
Exactly.
That the lighter stuff just doesn't do it. But that's
yeah, but it's funny. It's like, there's always the great debate in the modeling world if you need a gloss coat or not. And some people say no, some people say yes. But the thing is, normally, at least myself, when I do a gloss coat, I use an acrylic gloss coat. Well, if you had really old decals, you'd have to use another type before you use this stuff.
If you're sparing too, I mean, this might be the kind of thing that you better be testing it on a scrap.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Same paint that you're using in your project, right? Did you notice how it says for advanced users on the label?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure I qualify.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we good enough? But yeah,
I don't know if you mentioned this back, but there was a couple new of the regular Tamiya acrylic mini line. Did we ever talk about the new with DAC colors?
Yep, we did talk about that. And they also, Also, when I was preparing for the show, they've got their July releases, but I'll talk about them, and they've got a few more colors coming out in the lacquer line again for July. So they're really proving popular.
Yeah, but I'm talking about just the regular acrylic line that everyone knows and loves, kind of thing. I realize. I mean, all the DAC colors were represented earlier in the line, but it's. I guess it's always good to have something, just dialed into exactly that subject.
Yep, exactly. So that was very cool as well. So that's from our good friends at Tamiya this month. Moving on, Hasegawa, they've got a bunch of stuff. Looks like some newer molds and newer things, mostly civilian subjects. So they've got a Toyota Corolla 11 AE90T GTA. Looks like they're showing a CAD render there. An early version, Japanese saloon car. And again, 124 scale. We've said before many times that they love to do the civilian stuff.
Yes.
They've got a big 112th bike, a Kawasaki 500 SS Mach 3. They've got some 124th girls in from the 1980s. So they're dressed in
I'm going to get that.
80s. You are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To go with, they're just like regular people.
Yeah,
they're
just in regular clothes. Yeah, they're not in bathing suits or anything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're not like pinup girls. They're like it just looks like regular people. And so, I love that. I'm gonna put it with a car.
Yep.
The 80s car kit.
Yep. So there's a Mitsubishi Lancer EX 1800 GSR, a Nissan Bluebird 4-door sedan. Those are both in 124th. A Suzuki RG 400i early version in 112th. And looks like some coming soon. Looks like some re-releases. Nissan Bluebird, Hollywood celebrity girls figure. Looks like they just, American girls with sunglasses or something.
Yeah, it's like more 70s style, almost like clothing or whatever.
That's what it looks like. So that's cool. Okay, moving on. We then have. I came across this in one of the Facebook Royal Model. They do they do a lot of diorama accessories.
They do the resin cast products.
Yeah, they do figures and they do stuff like that. So they've got a bunch of new releases coming out in June. So I thought we'd feature them as well because small companies we love. Yes. First one is a base with a wall, 135th, 15 euros. Wall section.
That looks perfect for like a figure.
Yep, 48, 35th. Yep, it's resin. You paint it yourself. They've got mechanics in 148 scale. Looks like a car for like cars. These were sculpted by Roberto Real and then printed. So he sculpted them in 3D and then they print them.
Yeah, these look like CAD rendered drawings, but they look good.
Yep, and you can get them in two scales. So the 48th will set you back 24 euros, and the 35th is 36. But yeah, they look very detailed. Then we have a 75 millimeter Waffen SS Grenadier with a rifle for 35.
Now, if you notice, the base he's standing on is the one earlier mentioned. So okay, that makes sense.
Doing an example, different headgear included. There's two different heads with different helmets.
Right.
And again, very nicely printed. Then they have a couple of different assorted bases for 11 euros each, like cobblestone, crumbling a street, or a little section of a sidewalk. And then we have a German tank crew, and they have it in all three scales. 70 in winter dress. World War II, 72nd scale, 48th, and 35th. And
That's
again,
the thing about.
Yep.
I was going to say that this looks like they are getting into 3D printing because it's so easy. Once you have that master file to print it in any scale you would like.
Yeah.
And
now these
if you're offering products and there's even resin printers, it's not much different than.
Well, that's what I'm wondering if these are going to be resin printers. Yeah, they mentioned 3D and then they mentioned resin, and I'm really wondering if that's how it was done. Because this looks good. They're all in warm winter fatigues. You got two guys, standing. They're all various poses, hanging out the tank.
Yeah, and then the kind of drivers kind of tucked in a little tighter.
Yeah, and
I wonder
details. They're really nice.
I guess I'll have to call them up and ask them.
Yeah, and then you've got a tanker in a winter dress, 72nd, 48th. So a full size figure there. They've got an assorted railing set, 135th for 16 euros, photo etched.
Oh wow.
Yeah, very nice looking railing set. Factory window frames, windows for both 35th and 48th for about 20 euros. Again, photo etch just to drive you nuts. And of course, they recommend CA glue. But they're showing some examples here. We got this from our good friends at the Modeling News, and they show a little example of how they did the windows and stuff like that. Yeah, so definitely check them out if you're interested in dioramas and that. We love seeing those little smaller companies coming out and doing cool things.
Unique products for sure. And these are the types of things that you get and you throw on your, the same tank kit that all your friends have, but then you put it in context, you create that story with these neat little products, and then you get something really interesting that's turns people's heads. That's cool.
Adds that little bit extra. Okay, here's something you'll like next. So this is from Wave. This is a new version of the Custer.
Oh yeah. These are all really cool.
Yep. So
I have never built one of
from
these.
Machine Krieger. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, more and more you're seeing them outside of Japan. So this is
huge.
Yep. So the original kits, I guess, were originally, just at one convention at the Museum of Art in Japan in 2013.
Oh, yes.
Since then, they've been snapped up and now only available at exorbitant prices. So now Wave's going to make their own version of this kit. So they had previously released the Frederick and the Custer together in a box set. Right. This one just has the Custer, but it's obviously a much cheaper price point.
Right, it's only half one kit out of two. That thing about when they have conventions, having a convention exclusive release, that's a big thing. That's sort of like that's been a standard for a long time. Like I know Wonderfest, that happens in like the Japanese one, the original one, and it's going on for 20, 30 years or whatever. There's always convention exclusive kits, and then that's it. So it's unusual that it's getting a sort of wider release, but that's great, right? Because then more fans get it, and it also, I think, bolsters the brands when you have products.
And this looks cool. This looks very cool.
Yeah, these are all really neat. Kind of, they're very World War II, inspired, Star Wars inspired kind of things. Yeah, I've always enjoyed Machine and Krieger. We have a guest that in an upcoming interview that is heavily involved in that we're going to talk about. It's always very cool, but I've never built a kit. I have a kit in the stash, but I've never built one.
Well, I knew you had one in the stash, so this might get you going. So this one, apparently there's already some pre-orders available from shops in Japan. They mentioned Tokyo Model Detective here. He's already started making pre-orders for it. So yeah, that was kind of cool when I saw in my travels, and I knew you'd like that as well. Okay, Ryfield's doing a few new things. So they've announced a new version. This is the new Panzer IV last production with full interior. So this is coming out in June. 1/35th scale, obviously. Full interior plus clear parts. So yeah, very, very nice. And I know there's a lot of Panzer IV fans. Because it's yet another variation.
Do you think they've got all the Panzers covered now in kit form?
Well, who knows? There always seems to be something else coming out. Remember we covered that one? There was one made and someone stole it. So this is cool though, because they're going to have two versions. One's going to have like other kits have been doing with the interior. They're going to have a clear roof, so it's going to be made out of plastic, a clear plastic, so you can show off all the work you've done at the turret, and it doesn't hide away.
That's pretty cool, because that makes it an easy choice for the model builder, right? Because then you get a kit like that, and you're like, am I going to spend 80 hours, on the inside, and put the hull on, and then you kind of wonder what you're doing. But that's cool. If you need it, I wonder if you could interchange. Does it say to give you 2 copies of the top hull?
One says one will be a first edition with the clear roof for some of the works, plus a latter regular edition. No, I'm not sure. We've seen kits that have both, so they don't really go into detail. Because I guess the idea is with the clear, you could just paint it, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't it be cool if depending on how it's engineered, if you could, prepare 2, one clear and then one sort of weathered.
Like the clear parts, like they've got all the top sections that are exposed there, like it's the turret, plus the engine, the drivers, and like when they're they say here when they say full interior, you've got the engine, the turret, the driver's compartment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Everything is in here.
Yeah, that's really they didn't leave anything.
Yeah, it looks.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you put the top on that, right?
Well, exactly. I know, but it's always a challenge. Of course, highly detailed workable track links, two idlers,
I
a
mean,
ton, newly
the
tooled
fans of this are going to buy two, right? So they can just
probably.
do one and then show one off kind of on the interior. Sorry, but you were
They're also going to do a photo. They're also doing a photo etch upgrade set.
oh wow.
So this one's going to be, because this was part of this kit was already released, but like for the interior stuff, this is all the new tool stuff.
Okay, so it's the same boxing, but now the new interior.
A lot of extra bits for that. Looks like
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So they're saying June, July. I'm seeing here. So June it's going to be available, and plus the photo etch. So there'll be some
amazing.
fans just that'll be their wow. I'm going to build this and have an absolute ball.
Yeah. That'll be a fun project. I think it'll be a pleasant experience too, right? Just from what I'm hearing about the Ryfield engineering and their actual the process of putting it together, it's not a struggle.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next up we have Live Resin. They do a lot of resin figures, obviously. Sounds like it, doesn't it? So they've got a bunch of stuff if you're building, because there's been a bunch of new modern American helicopters out, like Pave Hawks, Little Birds, stuff like that. Yeah. So they've got some fantastic sculptings of some pilots and a crew. So like the MH Little Bird helicopter crew set 2 pilots and 5 special ops guys, hanging out the side with their guns and all that, looking rather. But the casting is just unbelievable.
Well, I have a feeling these pictures that we're seeing just in the preview, these look like CAD renderings to me.
Well, I don't know. They look good.
They do.
Apparently they are going to be available. They're available now, so
I'm sure that the actual product, like the cast product or printed or whatever it is, I bet you it's going to be as good as what you see here.
Yeah. I've heard of these guys before. They do some good stuff. So you've got the Pave Hawk helicopter crew, which is looks like a pilot, 2 or 3 of them. One figure, 1575. You've then got a helicopter crew set with 3 pilots.
Oh, okay.
And then a Pave Hawk helicopter H60G set. A whole bunch here. Crew sets. I'm just trying to find the Little Bird stuff. So they've got one here. If you just want the pilot in your Little Bird and your night vision, you can get that. And that's for the left. And you can also can you get it right? I'm just looking here. No, 2. So you can buy 1 pilot or both pilots. And then you can get, or a right separate. I'm just going down. They got a bunch of stuff, and then of course all the different operators. Yeah, so you really have some options here.
Yeah, they let you buy. It's nice when they let you buy
all sorts of
one
things,
figure.
You can buy one figure,
or 5. You get the set.
Yeah, all sorts of different ones. You get a couple of them with their beards and hanging onto the thing and all that. So, plus you get the combined one here. So if you buy the combined one, you get 2 pilots, 4 shooters, and you get a discount of 10%.
There you go.
Yeah.
Would you say $15, $15.75?
That was for per
single figure.
Yeah, the full set is $85.
Yeah, but that's not, if you don't want to go $100 after shipping on a figure, you can get one and really dress up your model.
I could see some people definitely this way. Then they've also added helicopter flight control sets. So again, just looking absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
For the cyclinic and the standard stick, whatever. So very cool. Beautiful. So check them out from Live Resin. They will be very fun. Cool. Okay, then there is 18 new products from Black Dog. So
okay.
So Black Dog makes a lot. I'm just playing catch up here.
They're a resin. They're like a resin aftermarket producer, and they've been around for a while. I know. I think I've used some of their stowage and ammo bins and stuff like that. Those kits have been around for a while.
Some of them before. Yeah. But again, I'm looking at some of the detail in this. So they've got a couple of different ones now. So 18 new products in 72nd, 35th, and 32nd this month. Mm-hmm. So we start off with the Rodin Rolls-Royce Armor Car in 1/72nd scale. You got a complete stowage set there.
Yes,
which looks absolutely gorgeous.
They do a lot. I think they almost specialize in stowage sets, 4 specific videos. specific kits. Sorry, and they're just gorgeous.
Yeah, and then you've got the SAS Jeep for the 1/35th scale for Africa, with this thing absolutely loaded down with water and gas cans and various Lewis guns and stuff like that to make
seat
it look
cushions and clothing.
well worn.
Yeah.
Now here's a cool one for the A10, for the Academy 1/72nd scale A10. Now, it's a moderately sized kit in 1/72nd, but look at the detail. They've got the avionics bays, the electronics bays all opened up, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Looks almost plug and play. I'm sure there's a bit more to it, but just gorgeous. They also have added the wings and rear electronics. So you can, put those up. So like the back end where it has the rear electronics, and at the back of the wings, some of the the wing spurs and all that. And then of course you got the big set which combines everything.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep, and
that'd be perfect for like a tarmac, scene with all the panels opened up and. I'm surprised they don't give you a new. The gun barrel, like I know it's obviously an avionics set, but like the gun barrel on the...
They might make a separate one. Maybe they make a separate one.
Yeah, because just looking at the kit, like that kit, it's Academy?
Yeah.
It dates back a little bit, right? And that gun barrel looks a little...
Yep.
It looks like it needs to be replaced.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have one. Moving on, we have 1/32nd scale, lady with an umbrella from World War I. So a civilian lady with her umbrella and her best dress. And then there's also a boy with a model toy airplane, again, from World War I. And also a British pilot from World War I. And then you can get the combined set as well, all three. Then moving on, we have in 1/32nd scale the U.S. Navy mechanic personnel from the Second World War. Two different figures. You can buy them individually or together. And then we've got the World War I British soldier Christmas truce, 1/35th scale, as well as the German one, and then the combined one. So this is the one where on Christmas Eve there was actually a unofficial truce. Across no man land, and they traded gifts and they played some soccer for a while, and then they went back to blasting the hell out of each other.
Yeah, an interesting.
Yeah, it was always an interesting
thing. Moment in time.
Yep. There is a desert ruin base for your 72nd scale armored car. Would be a good base for that. That looks very nice casting. They've also got, again, 72nd scale, a stone fence. Yeah. They've got a post-apocalypse metro base. I don't see a scale on that one.
I wonder. That's kind of
a figure.
It's sort of nondescript, so you probably could do whatever you wanted, right?
Yeah, probably. But
Oh, but then there's skulls littering the ground, so then there's got to be a scale.
Apocalyptic, so it's got to be something,
right? Unless they're mutant giant or miniature, skulls.
Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly. It's 1/35th. I just went to their website.
Okay.
It's 1/35th for that. Okay. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, but no, they make some great stuff, and this is all from the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
So for the A10, I know they released a previous set for the 48th version, and that does include a resin piece for the. Does it include for the cannon? No, not for the cannon on that one either. Really? But yeah,
I'm interested because I feel like there's an A10 in my future at some point.
Well, there might be, exactly. They do a nice one for the F-15 cannon in 48 scale, the B&D.
Yeah.
But they got some cool stuff. I've seen their stuff before, and it's always pretty cool.
It looks pretty top notch.
Out of the Czech Republic. Okay, I saw this one because I remember this years ago. I think Matt did one. This is a 72nd scale Sea Sprite. I haven't seen a kit of a Sea Sprite in forever. Yeah, this was a Navy helicopter, and so this one's going to be 72nd scale, out of clear prop models for about €25. They say it's designed for advanced modelers for 4 different schemes. Because this is a smaller helicopter, it's fiddly, but this looks really good with the photo etch and everything based on their shots. This will build up nicely. I'm looking at like the one with
era
assembly. This is like Cold War.
60s, 70s.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking now. You're putting me on the spot here. Now I got to look it up. Definitely.
This does look really good. That photo etch for the interior there. So basically, it's the seats and the dashboard and like there's like a winch line and then all of the rotor detail? I don't know without the technical.
So it was an anti-sub helicopter. It was introduced in '62, and the U.S. Navy retired them in '93, and the Royal New Zealand Air Force had them too. So so definitely 50s and 60s, and then in service. 184 built. They often used them too as a rescue bird. That'd be the bird off the side of the carrier.
Yep.
So if things went wrong on a landing and you had to punch out, they would be right there to scoop you out of the water.
Yeah.
So I don't think I remember Matchbox had one. But again, I just haven't seen one. And I noticed that they're a smaller not cottage unit, but smaller industries. So,
you know what's interesting? I think that the pictures. I'm just noting something here. The pictures here of the sort of build up. They have a box art and about 10 more photos. I think that looks like CAD renderings. And they've got photos.
Tough to
I can
tell,
tell by the
it might be CAD
lighting.
render. Yeah, you're right.
And they and then it's beautiful what you can animate in CAD and all kinds of different.
I think you're right.
software.
But again, this looks like it's going to be remember, this is 72nd scale.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing details you'd normally see on 48th to 32nd.
Oh, and but just the photo etch stuff looks just incredible. And it does look like a really interesting kit.
Well, let me put it this way: 92 plastic parts, 69 photo etch parts.
Yeah, that's a lot, but for advanced. Just an interesting trend I'm noting with all of we're looking at previews, we're looking at multiple producers from different parts of the world. This seems to be the way things are going. That it's all done in CAD, right?
Yep.
Old ways maybe have shed away, and you get hopefully the product you get is as it is shown because just so. The models are so beautiful.
Some advance, and I think as well as they always tend to send out review things and all that. Like they've got the complete instructions, and they're using Mr. Color as the paint callouts.
Yeah. No, I just mean that when you present this type of like a CAD drawing where it's sweet perfection, that still has to be translated into plastic form, right? And it has to be. You want it to look as good as kind of you start to imagine how good that's going to be in your hands or in person, right? And does it live up? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to have to see. They've got the full instructions here. Yep, lots of fiddly photo etch. I'm sure. If Ian built helicopters, our good friend Ian from On the Bench, because photo etch is your friend according to Ian.
Yeah.
So
that's
very
a lot of
and they're out of the Ukraine. So
cool.
The Ukraine. Okay, moving on. Our good friends at Leading Edge Models, a well-known Canadian company, well-known among Canadian modelers for decals and stuff like that. They're starting a new decal and resin series. So they're going to start with the SE5A with the Viper engine from World War I. So Part 1, the SE5A, and Part 2 will be completed by the end of June. So this is to celebrate the Canadian Air Force 100 years in service. Cool. So this looks like some interesting stuff. They haven't really put a picture up or anything. They've just put like a single photo showing some of the decal options.
Yeah.
But they do resin as well. They do some cool stuff. I think the decals. I'm not sure, but I got some decals from a former club member, and you're getting some as well. But they had some for a Canadian Sabre, and I think those were leading edge decals because I'm going to be converting my Skyhawk to a Canadian. But anything Canadian, you want to build F-18. They got so many different schemes for the F-18s and stuff like that. It's very cool. Very, very, very well known leading edge. And plus, as well, people do a lot of what if. Like I know on their what if page, they show a RCAF SAB Gripen. What if for that, and different what if schemes and stuff like that, like an old TSR2 in Canadian colors.
Yes,
all using their products. So they're a very cool company. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. So okay, we're almost done. There's just so much I found this week. So we talked briefly about JetMads last week, and I mentioned in passing they're talking about coming out with a 132nd scale Saab Viggen. This is going to be an absolute huge aircraft in 132nd scale. It's the Swedish home-built one. Well, apparently since that, they had so many people clamoring for this, saying, you got to release this first. You got to release this first. So they agreed to do this. So
Mm-hmm.
they only do limited runs. So they are going to release 500 of this,
Oh
and
wow.
apparently the pre-orders were snapped up like you would not believe. And
Huh.
this thing's now, this is what's interesting. So again, this is a big plane. I'll tell you how big. The list price is 240 US,
Oh my
and
goodness.
they sold out on pre-order. So
Wow.
obviously, what some people are waiting for.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty
yeah,
excited.
they don't, and that's it. They don't do more. So yeah, obviously, a lot of people they're hoping they were originally going to do the pre-order the end of August, but they just
Yeah.
got now part of the reason is it's a full resin kit with 3D
Yeah.
printed detail parts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, 292 was the pre-order price, 240 for the regular sales. But again, there was no regular scales, and they're not going to rush the design. And it's again, they produce quality, resin kits with limited runs.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow. Get
yeah,
it
so
while it's hot.
yeah, this looks absolutely, gorgeous. I always like the Sadvigan. It's a very cool looking aircraft,
Yeah.
especially with that funky ground attack camouflage. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, no, we talked about some of their other stuff they're coming out with as well. But
Uh-huh.
apparently this was announced, and they just got people saying, "You got to release it! You got to release it! We want it now!"
They must be out of Japan.
I'm not sure where they are, to be
Well, I
perfect.
just having a quick peek at their website, and you can. Oh my goodness! But then it has a Japanese translation and an English translation, or like buttons you click. But then I noticed that they have a website or they have an address in Turkey,
Yep, they
Istanbul,
do.
Turkey.
Yep. So there you
So
go.
maybe they're just really popular in
Yeah,
Japan.
but
Take
obviously
Japan.
well, because I know there is, because the pop-up comes up when you first went to the site
Yeah.
that says all the kits are reserved now. Future reservation requests from now on will be added to the waiting list in their order of arrival, only to be fulfilled if any vacancies occur in the primary list during the pre-order period. And then they've got
Okay.
the Japanese translation below that. So
Yeah.
yeah, they obviously have a big market for Japanese modelers.
Sure.
Yeah,
Maybe those are like very interesting subjects in
I
those
guess
modeling
they
communities.
just have people who will buy the big stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and this one's definitely CAD because if you go to their website, they have a picture, and
Yeah.
you've got the aircraft with the front landing gear wheels, but there's no
Uh-huh.
landing gear.
Yeah.
The landing gear
But
is not
it's an
invisible.
interesting, it's a really sharp and like just some
Oh yeah,
observations. It's a very sharp look to
yes it
whatever,
is.
if it's a helicopter, new plane, yada yada. It looks amazing.
Yeah,
It's so smooth and it looks so real.
yeah.
Some of the lighting things kind of just tipped me off there a little bit. But it seems like that this is kind of a new trend where I'm sure it's been happening for a little while. We probably mentioned it before, but now it just seems to be very,
Well,
quite
I,
standard, right?
I think what it is as well is they can quickly do a CAD without having to
Yeah,
hire a master modeler,
yeah,
master modeler
yeah.
to do it. So that might be the reason as well.
Oh,
So
I'm sure there's tons of advantages and efficiencies to be
yeah,
had by doing this way, and it's probably that's why we're seeing it. But it's just kind of interesting, something to note since we're
yep,
kind of
very cool.
observers of the industry.
Yep. Okay, and you have the last one. There's a new Gundam.
Yeah, yeah. I think this one will be a big deal. It's the so Bandai is just announced a 1:144 scale HGAC, the Gundam Heavy Arms, and this is from Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, which
Okay.
was a pretty it was a fairly influential anime series. I think it was like the first bit of officially licensed Gundam in the North American world. So
Okay.
people saw this in the mid '90s and were like, "Oh, it's a taste of Japanese animation." This, so I gotta say, I've never seen the whole thing, but the HGAC, that's the it's high grade. I think it's alternative
Hmm.
century. Like they had all these different like series that did not take place in the main universe. So I mean, we
Hmm.
often report on releases in the HGUC, which is Universal Century, which is like the timeline of all the different or
Hmm.
the main core story. But I think what happened was that there were different artistic personnel working on various shows. So they kind of gave them their own stamp. But Wing was a huge series. It's still popular today. I think it came out in the early to mid '90s, and the Heavy Arms is one of those sort of very iconic mobile suit designs and a fan favorite kind of thing. So, and the kit, there would have been a kit from the Wing line in like 1995. So you can imagine how many years difference in engineering. So this kit looks beautiful. Like it looks, these kits are so well engineered. They go together. They're color correct for people who aren't gonna kind of take them down the whole trip there. But it looks very cool, and that is coming out in October.
Yeah, pretty nice price point. 63 Canadian. So it's going to be. Wait, no, it's 144. But it looks.
Yeah, they're not huge.
Cool.
They're not huge, but usually you get a fair amount of features, and
it looks very, very cool.
Yeah, it has a ton of it has a huge. I don't know how it fits into the context of the story, but it has a overwhelming firepower and equipped with various weapons such as its chest Gatling gun, shoulder-mounted missiles, leg micro missiles, beam Gatling.
Well, it's got all sorts of things. Yeah, this thing's ready to take names and kick ass.
It's loaded for bear, and I think that might be part of its appeal to a lot of mecha fans and Gundam builders. So, but that's a big deal. I think I've seen a little bit of buzz online about this one coming out, and again, those kits from the '90s, they're probably okay, or they might be the type of things that they need so much work to get them somewhat accurate to the TV show or the line work or whatever, and whereas a new kit will be a world of difference. So it's pretty cool.
Right, very cool. Okay, we're going to briefly touch on from our friends at ScaleMates.com. Their hot kits. Pretty well, not a lot of movement around. You've got the Russian Ming Typhoon armored vehicles we talked about last show. Those are all new tools. The Ford Mustang GT4 from Tamiya in 1/24th. Rise Challenger 2.
P-38 still there.
P-38. The Tiger Moth is still there from Airfix. The Lockheed P-38H Lightning. This is the second one of the P-38 series with some changed parts coming out soon. A lot of mostly armor. But, again, a couple things for next year. People are still talking about this Revell SR-71 Blackbird in 148. Speaking of big,
nice to see.
Big kits, that's going to be a big kit as well. Some reissues with changed decals.
Yeah, the Wildcat from Arma Hobby. We've been hearing such good things about that.
Oh yeah, just absolutely amazing. Kinetics re-releasing their EA6B Prowler with new decals. That would be a fun one to build if you love doing cockpits, because the cockpits there are just so exposed. But again, it's a fair size plane. You'd be spending a lot of time there. Of course, the Royal Class Mustang from last year from Eduard, the dual combo. Of course, the Jet Mad Vigan 2021 new tool. People are going nuts about that.
Yeah.
And look, your M551 Sheraton's still there.
Yeah.
Calling your name, dude.
Someday.
Calling your name. Someday.
Discipline.
Discipline, that's all it is. So anyway, a whole bunch of stuff there. Definitely check out our good friends at ScaleMates. What's really good about them too is once you join, you put your stash in that in. We've talked about this, and then you can help contribute. So, for example, that Valkyrie kit I finished, I noticed in the database there's no instructions for it. So what I've done is I've cut my instructions so I can scan it. I'm just flattening them out, and I'm gonna upload them so that way if anyone else needs them, they will be available for people. So
that's cool. Yeah, and it's once in a while, it's kind of, for whatever reason, you end up having to dig out something. Like I know I've done that. I've been like rifling through, thinking, "Gosh, I know I have that instruction kit from 20 years ago, and I need to see it for some reason." Like you're doing a variation or just something. So it is cool that database exists, and if you just had to quickly look at something and print it out or whatever, it's there, and it's all user driven, which is awesome.
Well, it's funny, something I haven't done before, and I don't know why, and I've started doing it the last two kits. I've started scanning my instructions and my decal sheets.
Oh yeah.
I scan them both. Just, it never hurts. And again, you can put those because sometimes people are looking to print a decal or something. A single decal.
Printing decals isn't as scary or black magic-y as I think that we have in our heads. So I just did some for the first time ever, like this past winter. And it wasn't, I'm sure if I did it again or spent more time playing with it, I could definitely refine it. But it kind of worked out okay.
It worked out great. Yeah, because you did that on
for the Mooseroo Cup challenge.
Yeah.
So
the lads really liked it.
I certainly knew. I could recall times where I wanted custom decals, and I had a piece of artwork or something like that, and I thought I wish I had that. But that it ended there, and I was like, well, I'll pick something from what I have because I don't want to get lost down that path. But it was pretty fun. It's an interesting route, and if you're saving a little library of your decal sheets before you cut into them,
it's nice.
You've got options. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I started doing that as well.
Cool.
Okay, so that's all the news. I told you there was a bunch of news. We're over an hour in.
A little bit.
That's all the news. So we have a bonus too, because this episode's running a little bit extra long tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to start out with our What's the Scoop. So we have 2 interviews tonight.
Yes.
So we're gonna talk about a new thing. We're talking about for bonuses for Patreons and that.
Yes.
And Anthony, I'll let you introduce and introduce our interview.
Yeah. So for What's the Scoop this episode, we are introducing a new video series that's going to be part of Scale Model Podcast, and it's called Terry's Trade Secrets. And we have enlisted the help of a good friend. I've known Terry for a number of years as sort of an acquaintance, but I've kept in contact with him here and there. And he's also a great friend of the show. But he's just a terrific modeler and so knowledgeable. And he's going to be doing, how do you say, an irregular video tutorial series.
Yes.
And yeah, it's going to be on scalemodelpodcast.com. We're going to announce the new episodes as they come out. They're kind of as Terry wants to complete them, and he's got some really cool stuff. So Terry's just a fantastic modeler. He's got a really wide range of interests. We catch up with him here and speak with him for about just a few minutes to kind of to launch this show, and he's just working on some awesome stuff. And I met him as a clinician at Wonderfest. He was talking about like glazings for and filters for figures, and that was 10 years ago, and it was awesome. So check it out.
So here we go. All right, we're back here with the Scale Model Podcast, and as always, both myself and Anthony, we have something special. We're going to welcome a new segment and a brand new good friend of the show. Anthony, take it away.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited about this. This is awesome. We're going to have a new series come out. It's going to come out on an irregular schedule, but it'll be something to look forward to. It's going to be called Terry's Trade Secrets. And it's going to be hosted and presented by our good friend, the Terror, Terry Measley. Correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So welcome to the show. So
yes, welcome.
Yes. So anyway, just give us a brief little intro. Tell us all about Terry.
Hi. I'm a longtime modeler. Started as a kid. Didn't really stop that much. Even through college, I was doing a little bit. And then picked up again in earnest. Met the Starship Modeler guys, John Lester and Rob Caswell, and those guys in the late '90s. When I moved up here to the Chicago area, and we formed a nice little group there through Wonderfest and everything else, doing demos. And this seems like a really good logical extension of that.
Excellent. So I should let people know that Terry is an excellent modeler, an advanced modeler, always doing interesting stuff. He's also a clinician at Wonderfest and putting on so many great seminars. I know I've attended a couple on figure painting. I think I was at one for photography. But anyway,
I don't think I did. We may have just talked about it.
Yeah. Okay. I know I've participated in a couple, and they were excellent. And you're always into interesting things. What are some of the subjects that you like to model? Just to give people sort of a profile of you.
Mostly on the larger scale stuff. It's science fiction stuff and aircraft. So not so much the modern aircraft, but older 30s, 40s, 50s subjects.
Cool.
Into say Vietnam and that kind of era. And on the science fiction side of things, it's a little bit of everything. The Star Wars universe is a lot of fun. Star Trek is fun, but the ships are not easy on the paint and masking side of things.
Yeah.
But anything else, I'll do figures as well. I do a lot of miniatures when I get into that mode. I haven't been in that mode for a year or so.
Yeah, but I know you were interested in like actual gaming, like Warhammer stuff. Is that correct?
Plus, I don't really. I do a tiny amount of Warhammer stuff.
Okay.
But mostly it's just the figures for that. So from some, like, my favorite brand is probably Hassle-Free Miniatures.
Oh, cool.
Kev White and that crew, and because it's a lot of pop culture stuff, it's a lot of really good posing, and he still sculpts by hand mostly, which is astonishing. But the life that brings to a figure is totally different from someone who does a lot of CG sculpting, where Bombshell does a lot of 3D sculpting. But he does pretty well for that.
Excellent.
And then the larger scale stuff, not so much larger scale figures. 54 millimeters is about as big as I go.
Okay. So as you can tell by listening, Terry knows quite a bit about various modeling subjects, and he's very in depth. And I think this is going to be a really exciting series. I know I've often asked Terry about things that he's done, kind of wondering, like, how did you get that? So, and we don't really have a how-to series per se, or we don't really cover a lot of that stuff. We do a little bit, and I know that Terry is very capable, very detailed, and he's going to be covering topics that are right from beginner to advanced level. It's whatever he feels like doing. And I've seen some of his video work. He does awesome tutorials, and is I think bringing his A game to to the SMP.
Awesome. So yeah, it's going to be really good. And we're looking forward to having the first release. And as always, for stuff like this, special content, we're going to make it available to our Patreons, which Terry is one of them. So we'll make it available back to himself, him and the other Patreons a week early. And they get to see that exclusive stuff. So make sure, if you're interested, patreon.com/Scale Model Podcast.
You get that advanced viewing. And then, of course, everyone will have a chance to see what Terry has to offer as part of our on ScaleModelPodcast.com. And do you have a kind of a hint or a sneak peek of different subjects that you're thinking of tackling, Terry?
Yeah, the first one I did was on using Future as a glaze, using India inks.
Cool.
And doing dipping and like showing canopy dipping, things like that. Sometimes you just need to see it. But you can tint that as well with inks to make that canopy gold or green or whatever. Then I started working on, I'm doing this 48 scale Spitfire. I was going to show how to use punching out instrument panel decals to fit in the instruments, and then using UV cured resin to make the bezel there.
Cool.
But I realized pretty quickly that 48 scale was a little too small to show that well, so I pulled out a 32nd scale one, and that led into, well, I don't want to use the kit part as a test subject, so I made a mold of it, and I was like, oh, I should just do a basic benchtop mold making.
Yes, you should. Oh, man, I have questions about all this stuff.
That's what I was doing this morning. Then I'm going to go on. I can do some filling and such if this kit needs it. It's kind of as the kit goes along.
Yeah,
Then getting into like the shading, because this is a monotone scheme. It's all PRU blue. So how do you make a monotone blue plain?
But that PRU blue is an attractive scheme.
I love that. I have a Spitfire upstairs, one of the bomber Spitfires in PRU scheme, and it looks great.
Yeah, I want to do one of those, and the other one I want to do sometime was the one they did in that really bright naval blue for the ones they transported to Malta for the brief flight. Yeah, that's kind of cool. There was an article I saw recently on that. I think Airfix just released a little all about some of the history of that. They actually painted one of the Battle of Britain flight Spitfires for that temporarily. So.
Cool.
Okay, so we should
Yeah.
also say that this series, when it's released to the general public after the week, it's also going to be available at Starship Modeler as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
should
it's sort
we
of
should
a-
look at that as well.
Yeah,
And
Terry is
along those lines, I will be doing one of like your in depth on the bench,
Cool,
building up some 3D printed kits.
awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
We want to know.
Yeah,
We want to know.
I've
and we
learned a
think all our
lot
listeners
just
too.
making the first couple of them, so I'll pass the stuff along.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
amazing.
Perfect.
Well, we look forward to that. I think it's going to be a really neat addition to the show, and welcome aboard, Terry.
Thanks.
Okay, and thank you for joining us tonight for this brief intro. And as you see, that was really a really good interview for 5 minutes. And I said we're looking forward to that new video series.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our sponsor. Oh yeah, that's
Me.
you again.
That's me. Yep.
Our good friends at Goodman Models. So what's happening in the
Yeah.
super sanding block
Oh
world?
my goodness, I wish I had some friends to help me get them all done.
I
it's
thought you had
been-
a lot of. I thought you had a lot of
Minions?
minions. I think you
The
had
cats,
minions.
they barely do any work. They're
And
lazy.
the children won't.
Yeah, and children.
Typical.
You
What's
know,
the
their
point?
job is to play.
I suppose,
And
and
they're
their
experts.
mother won't let them. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Probably.
But,
You
yeah,
get in
things-
trouble.
Things are going good. The next shipping date is June the 15th, which is also the prize shipping date for Scale Model podcast prizes. Yeah, you know what? Business has been brisk, and I really appreciate all that. And I hope that people are building lots of, getting through their projects if they have a bit of isolation time, and I hope that they're helping. I know I've been busier than usual with stuff, and definitely using up my super sanding blocks all the time now.
Good.
So yeah, right now I'm in good shape. I have lots of stock. I'm cooking up a few new things, but I'm not quite ready to talk about anything yet. I'm slowly updating.
He hasn't even told me, folks. He's got that hidden behind the
cooking.
super secret vault with like multiple armed guards and little wisps of smoke coming out from behind the doors.
That's right. I'm working on something. I got a couple ideas brewing, so we'll see where they go. But in the meantime, if you need a set, shipping is this week. I've got full sets in stock. I've got singles. I've got factory seconds, and I just got a new batch of super stands from my good friend at Sean's Custom Model Tools. So I've got a healthy stock of those. They've been really popular. I know I love it, and I think people are really enjoying them. And they just keep your workbench neat and tidy. We know that can all be a challenge, and that stuff piles up and I think the stand's great for just keeping everything where I can see it and I can reach them really easily. So I'm loving that.
Now, I saw a really cool thing, and I think it was in our last prize thing where we had people submitting pictures of their workbench, or someone put the color guide that you supply, the little piece of paper with the color guide. They glued it to the back of their stand. Was that Gary?
Yeah, it was Gary.
That was awesome. That was a
good idea. Yeah, I know some people have put it, taped it to the inside of the box, but I mean the box is really just to get it to you. I mean, obviously you can keep the box.
That's a good idea. Yeah, like I have mine on my workbench. Like I have the piece of paper, and I've been trying to decide how am I going to put it. But that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, slap it on the back.
Yeah, slap it on the back or something. So yeah, that's kind of cool as well. So I wanted to point that out and give credit where credit's due. So
thanks, Gary.
Okay, so where can someone get all this awesomeness?
Well, please do check out goodmanmodels.com. Even though I'm slowly and painfully in the middle of upgrading all my pictures, everything's available there.
I obviously have to nag him again. Sorry, guys.
I deserve it. It's so tedious. I don't like it. But
if it wasn't for COVID, I'd have to come over and smack him. But alas, keeps the store locked.
They are there. Wheels and Wings in Toronto has a full complement of all the products, and they are they're fully stocked, and they're doing lots of mail order. They're also available at flexifile.com, and if you'd like a custom color super stand, then check out Sean's Custom Model Tools, and he's got a whole bunch of other really cool tools as well. And that'll give you a little hint that there will be some upcoming prize giveaways involving some of his cool tools.
Exactly. Yes, two very dangerous websites as well, but well worth it. So yeah, check that out. And as always, we thank them for their support.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move on now. We have a very special interview, and this one again, we've got someone who is just such an awesome interview. We had to split it in 2 parts.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, if we put it all together, by the time you finish this episode, you'd be running out of space on your smart device or whatever. So, you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah. So we have Lincoln Wright, and this guy is he's just fabulous, and he's really interesting. He has the craziest tales to tell. He's just an expert modeler. He spent a whole bunch of time in Japan, and I mean, if you're unfamiliar, when you go to Japan, it's a wonderful and wacky place, but it's really tough to kind of make a name for yourself. Like in Japan, they like Japanese stuff. They got a Japanese way, and there's Japanese people to do all that stuff and do it their way. It's really difficult to make a mark and be accepted kind of into the inner workings of whatever it is that you're doing there. So we have this Lincoln's just an amazing guy from Australia, and he did just that. He is the brand ambassador for Machine & Krieger, I think, like outside of Japan. Right. And that's a series that's been going since the mid '80s. So it's kind of like a fairly established like subject or genre. No, I mean it's a series. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. And I think what he's done is very impressive, and what an interesting guy to talk to.
Yep. So here we go. Without further ado, this is part 1. Welcome to the ScaleModelPodcast.com interview section. And tonight, once again, thanks to the amazing abilities of Mr. Goodman, who is also here with me, he has lined up another amazing guest. So, Mr. Goodman, take it away.
Hey, welcome to the interview portion. And we have Lincoln Wright with us of PaintOnPlastic.com. This is amazing. Actually, Lincoln reached out to me, so it was like the equivalent of shaking the box and the model falls out. The interview just kind of started up by itself. But this is amazing. This guy is fantastic. He's like right up my alley, so I'm very excited to talk to him. Let me tell you a little bit about Lincoln. He was born in Australia, and he grew up in Tokyo, Japan. And he was there for 25 years. So this is going to be interesting. And an obsession with robots and model airplanes came together with the discovery of Gunpla, Macross, and Machine & Krieger, or Mach, and in Akihabara in the early 90s. And that was the place where you go to find all your hobby goods. Lincoln has worked with Ko Yokoyama Sensei as a studio model artist and writer for the Machine & Krieger property with Hasegawa, Wave Corporation, and Model Graphics for the Mach profile series. Max Watanabe invited Lincoln to collaborate on the long-running series Mach in SF3D by Hobby Japan. So this is amazing stuff. These are all the guys that I was following and trying to find out about in the 90s and aughts. He also was at World Model Expo when they added a category for sci-fi, and they invited Lincoln Wright to judge in Stresa, Italy. He was also invited to the Gunpla Builders World Cup, which is probably unfamiliar to a lot of traditional, I got air quotes going on there, but traditional model builders, but that's become a fairly big convention and sort of international event. And he was there demonstrating weathering techniques and co-hosted a series of panels with Katsumi Kawaguchi Meijin on weathering Gunpla. And I hope I got all those titles.
Well, I hope you did too. That's why I had you do the intro.
There's more. Lincoln now resides in Australia with his beautiful family, and he's launched Paint on Plastic by Lincoln Wright, and that's hosted across several media platforms. So he has a really cool YouTube channel that's loaded with great content, and of course PaintOnPlastic.com. And he shares his unique experiences as the only English-speaking Western model maker to have worked with the greats in Japan, learning their methodology while furthering to develop his own unique style. So, Lincoln, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you very much for the wonderful intro there, guys. I'm very happy to be here.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I want to meet this guy who you just talked about, because it sounds great when you put it together like that. It doesn't sound like 20 years of suffering, does it? It sounds great.
It's
Right.
amazing
Whoa.
what happens when you go to a website and you find someone's random bio.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we spiced it up a little bit with all the juicy bits.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't talk about getting hit in the head a lot, does it? And kicked up the bum. But thank you. It's a wonderful intro. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to look. Many people don't do that.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of one of the challenges, and certainly being a professional maker, and we were discussing about that a little bit, is how to get out there and to actually show people your work. It's such a challenge, but I mean it's a different world a little bit as well, and again a different world with the whole COVID-19 pandemic as well. So, but let's rewind and go back to the beginning. How did you first get into modeling?
That's the part of the story that's going to sound like everybody else. My dad was, hey, here's an Airfix Spitfire, make this. And so I started off, traditionally young in Australia, making warbirds, World War II aircraft. And it was very limited. Dad, this Mitsubishi aircraft looks really cool. Because no, the ones you're allowed to make are, the English and the American ones, only the Allied ones. So that was the start. Making them, hand brushing them with Humbrol, straight out of the tin that I'd pretended to stir with the matchstick.
Yes.
Puffing the what did we used to call it? The little tubes that look like toothpaste glue. Yeah. And somehow wedging another toothpick into it to stop it going everywhere. That was the start.
So very humble beginnings. The more interesting question. So how did you discover anime models, and what were the series or subjects that caught your attention?
So I still remember the first one I bought there in Japan, but I'd gone with modeling. I did it for quite a while as a young kid in Australia, and it was warbirds all the way through. And actually, I remember getting into jets a little bit, but they had to have cool camouflage schemes. That was the main criteria. And I also vividly remember not caring if the paints, the finish sheen of the paints was not important. So it would be half flat and half gloss. Which, with Humbrol, the difference is night and day, isn't it? The glosses are very gloss.
Very much so.
That. But
that's funny.
They sell sci-fi kits everywhere in Japan. So I remember it was a transformable kit from the Macross series, which many of us might know from being called Robotech, was the Western application of it. And I think it was a VF-19. It was red and yellow, very harsh colors.
Oh, yeah, the Fire Valkyrie.
That's it. Oh, dude, well done.
It must have been the 1 to 1/4 transformable one, or was it 1 to 100?
No, you're right. You'd be right. It'd be 144. Because it was tiny once it went together. But it was such a cool little kit, and it went together as advertised. Had the stickers, everything, and that was the first one. So, and showing this to my friends, they were, dude, you got to get in. I say, dude, but it was in Japanese, so it's more like, oh my. But dude, you got to go into Akihabara. They've got all of that kind of stuff there, and you'll love it. So that was the beginning.
Amazing. That's wild.
And it was terrible, and I didn't paint it. I didn't do a very good finish. I think I was twisting the parts off the runners. It was a very bad start.
Classic start.
I've got my hand up. I confess to committing the sins against the wonderful.
Yes, we all have.
We've all done that. We've all been there. So how did you? So this is what I'm going to find fascinating. How did you parlay your hobby into a career? What type of projects did you work on to make a living?
So the discovery story is kind of interesting because it was no plan whatsoever. I just happened. A lot of it was luck. I'll be very honest. It was just luck, being in the right place at the right time, and having done a lot of work to be prepared when that opportunity came along. And it was so 2009 was the year that it changed over. I happened to win the. You like how I make it sound accidental? I happened to win.
Yeah, I saw that.
I just realized when I said it, that sounds total BS. To be honest, you tried really hard to win the All Japan MAK contest, the Machining Krieger contest of 2009. And I got pretty lucky because I got to paint a very large resin kit. It was not a commercial kit; it was a resin kit of a lunar diver. So
cool.
it's quite big. I'd say to be about 2 feet long.
So
Maybe
was that 35th scale or bigger?
So 120.
20. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff in 120th scale. So it's huge.
It's huge, and I guess it's kind of cheating in a way because I was already friends with Yokoyama-san at the time. I happened to also not live far from him, so I reached out and I said, Sensei, how do I paint something this big? He said, just use bigger brushes. It's like, okay.
That's amazing.
And he said, and use rattle cans to build up the paint. He goes, you know how to do it. Just make sure you, what's the right way to say that? Bring up the scale of it. Bring up the resolution of it. He says, you're used to painting 120 scale on the little, the suits, the little guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Paint that same visual resolution, but enlarging it to fit the large scale of the model. So, sorry, this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but what he was getting at was that, you know what I mean? Sometimes you get a very large model and you're tempted to paint it to the same density of effects per, say, square unit of space as you would on a small model.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then it will take you forever to finish it. And then you put it on the table in a large auditorium where you show models. You take your 2 steps back and it's all gone.
Yeah.
You can't see a thing because you've got to be right up on it.
I understand exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You've got your usual workbench view, but you've got to have that view. So we talked about that a few times, and it just happened to click for this one. So I painted it very large and overdone up close. I was very scared and nervous, but once I put it in place on the show, it shone. So it was a bit of a leap of faith for that one. And Max Watanabe happened to be there. I hadn't officially been doing the proper professional work there, but Max saw it and he was asking around, who's this? And I was saying, it's that funny looking guy over there. And Max came over, and this was before the win was announced. Max just came over and said, come see me at Hobby Japan next week.
Wow.
And I didn't know who he was.
Oh, really?
This is also the funny thing, but that's a whole separate story. But
yeah.
So there was quite a bit of work put into it, but it was still just showing up to a show with the intention of doing well by putting a lot of effort into a model. But of course, if I couldn't speak Japanese, it wouldn't have happened. So there of course was a
huge undertaking.
Yeah, there was a pre-interview, of course, that I didn't realize was an interview. I mean, I'll be the first one. I don't notice these kind of things. I'm not that bright with that kind of thing. So Max is probably pumping me for information, and it was a little pre-interview, but I didn't see that coming. I answered as if he was another interested Japanese modeler.
Right. Well, especially if you didn't recognize him at the time. So, okay, I think we're probably going to...
that was wrong, guys, but yeah.
So we are going to zip forward and backwards. So I got to back up. How did you meet Ko Yokoyama? I say his name right.
Yeah, that actually, congratulations. That's perfect. Some people, and he knows, we joke about it. Some people call him, right? They call him Cow. So he's
really, wow.
He released a version of the Folkcare, the flying kit. That he has painted it as a cow, as a gag.
That's funny.
He goes, they keep calling me Cow. I don't know why. And
yes.
And I have to shrug. I don't know either.
But so okay, you had already, prior to this big win at the show.
Yep, that was 2009.
It kicked off your...
I met him about 2007 or 8.
Okay.
So, and that was at Wonder Festival. You've heard of them?
That one? I was at the summer one.
Wonderfest. Yeah.
Oh, man. It was crazy.
Yeah. This was the summer one as well. Yeah.
I was there somewhere, milling about, spending money.
It's crazy, isn't it? And they happen to have a kind of Maschinenkrieger get-together party afterwards.
Cool.
So all of the different vendors are invited, and it's kind of, because all of the people are together at one event, it's then easy for them to go to an after party together. Mm-hmm. And people then, it's their opportunity to have contact time with Yokoyama-san. So it was amazing watching it unveil too. So we're all put at our tables. I was at table 12 with the other people who don't have friends and are otherwise socially unacceptable, and all the cool people who know each other are like in tables 1 to 10, right? And then, so as I arrived, I was put on the other one. But and then as the poor guy is trying to eat, once somebody gets brave enough, or translate, has had enough beer put into them, stumbles over with their little offering and goes, "Sensei, I made this," and then he has to, when the sumo take the money at the end of their bout, they do the little, they bless the money and then take it, because a bunch of money without blessing it would be kind of bad, right? So they wave their hands over it and they take it. So kind of waves hands over model and he says, "Yeah, good job." He offers people pointers, which were later on when I got to sit with him. Basically, he'd invite me to sit next to him. So it was also part of the education, because he'd give people tips and feedback.
Oh,
and
amazing.
often they weren't for them; they were for me, because you guys will have seen this too. Lots of people cannot take advice on their projects.
Oh yeah, I mean,
for various reasons. I don't blame them.
Yeah, it's tough to take sometimes.
I understand that. We put so much into it that it's very difficult to accept an external perspective, even after we've asked for it.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me what to do with this? You should do this. Oh, don't be so harsh, man.
It's tough to swallow sometimes.
Yes. So that was super interesting. So that was the first time I met him. I went up there, and it was Ichimura-san, the owner of Model Graphics. He's also one of the original 3 people who invented SF3D.
Okay.
Back in the early days.
You were working at Hobby Japan, right?
That's right. They were Hobby Japan at the time, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So
they were.
That was the first time I got to meet him, and it was interesting because they looked really nervous. And first thing I always say is, it's okay, I speak Japanese, and then they kind of, sigh of relief goes around the table. And I followed everyone else. I kind of slided across in front of him. It was the second Machine Krieger model I'd made. He spins it around, and he gave me some really good comments. He said, I had painted the base to be lit from one direction because it was a lunar base, and I just kind of thought, light through space doesn't get refracted through atmosphere, right? So it would hit things square on, and the shadows, there should be no diffusion between the light and the dark, right? It should be one or the other. And he instantly spotted that's what I attempted to do. So there was nothing on the model. The base got all of the attention. He shows it around the table. Everybody nods and applauds agreeably. And then I shuffled back to table 12. And
wow, that's amazing.
It's a really funny memory, come to think of it now. And if I compare it to what happened in the later years, it is pretty funny. From table 12 to the right seat.
There you go. That sounds like a chapter in your biography you could write.
Yeah, I've got to get somebody to do a better job of writing it out than me.
Well, some of these stories you got to document, right? For sure.
And a better guy to play my part. You need that too.
I'm just writing this down because it'll be the title. So you meet these at this event, right? And they sort of cautiously talk with you, kind of in the style of Japanese culture. And how did you sort of continue on that acquaintance or kind of develop into like a working relationship?
Yeah. Okay. Excellent question. Again, I've been interviewed a bunch of times. I've not been asked that one, which is kind of key, isn't it? I kept working. I still had no direct wait a minute. Was that time? No, Yokoyama-san reached out first. I think the very next day after that meetup at the pub, after Wonder Festival, one of the people that we what do we call it again? Not exactly go-between. That's the word that's popping up in my mind.
The middleman?
A middleman, but it's a friend of both of us. But yeah, he acted as a middleman.
Mutual acquaintance?
Exactly, but he was operating as a middleman. It's a very nemoashi is a concept in Japan that you always have somebody operating between.
Like an intermediary.
Yeah,
I mean, that's missing from Western culture a little bit, right?
Yeah, it is.
We have it, but we don't put a name to it. So I still see it exist. I've got a meeting tomorrow in town at the local hobby shop that has been set up in a kind of similar way.
By like a networking agent or something, right?
Kind of, but yeah. The Japanese do lots of things quite well, especially societal things. They're quite proper about it.
Yeah, functions and there's so many formal procedures and things for how to do things and how to interact and.
And Yokoyama-san can't reach out to me. He can't say, hey, Bear, come and have coffee with me tomorrow. It would just be wrong, wouldn't it? Because he's walking on the clouds and I'm some turkey in the dirt. So it's just not right. So he reaches out to our mutual friend who kind of, he's not clear about it because he says, hey, Link, what are you doing tomorrow? Because I have a tip that Yokoyama-sensei just might happen to be visiting this store tomorrow at this time.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, if you happen to be there, and he likes coffee and cake, and it was the invitation that was it was the not invitation that was like, but I'll mention it many times. I'm not that bright, but he eventually was clear enough that I was like, oh, okay. That was the very next day I showed up because. And I understand there's the novelty factor too. It's like, wow, this guy looks like this. He kind of talks like us. Seems to have a little bit of at least latent ideas or talent to do it.
You probably had an air of like mystery around you, like a kind of a novelty. I remember experiencing that a little bit myself, so I can. That's kind of what it's like. Just because you are who you are, you're very novel and quite interesting.
Right.
Plus,
I asked him years later. And I said, why? Why did you decide to teach me? And he said, you don't talk back.
Oh, well, that's
nice.
Well,
that's
yes, it was, and he's straight, sharp. There's no BS, especially by that stage. He just said, yeah, you don't talk back. Anybody else I try to give advice, they're too busy telling me what I should be thinking rather than listening to what I have to say.
And that's a very important thing that throughout any sort of apprentice master sort of thing that people often forget, especially in the current age. So that's awesome.
Right. So you got to show up like Jake Sully and be glass empty and not too bright, and then they can teach you. Avatar was pretty good like that. And it turned out to be a really good day because he showed. We walked around, visited. We looked at the store. He talked about many things, and asked a lot of questions. He had some exhibits of his just happened to be on display. Just happened to be the store we visited too. Yeah, no coincidences.
No.
And then we went to coffee, and I bought some of the kits that they were selling on the day, and I asked good questions. I said, have you seen the Anthony? I'm sorry, Stuart. I don't expect anybody to have really looked into these things. So.
Well, no, that's okay. This is like I said. This is why it's always a learning thing for both of us. And Anthony understands a little bit because he's been there. But it's always good if there's something I feel will the listeners might want to hear a bit more. I'll ask you for a follow up.
Sure, awesome.
So,
carry on. That's the deal.
Carry on.
So have you seen the Ghoul Squadron markings? It looks like a skull head, ghost head on top of the suits.
I think yes.
No issue if you haven't, but it's quite it looks like it's taken from, I didn't know at the time that he's actually a professor of fine arts and an expert on Rembrandt. I didn't know at the time. It's based on the screen. Who painted the screen, Tomoe?
Wasn't that the guy who cut his ear off?
That's Van Gogh, right? This one's sorry, the Japanese pronunciation is Munch. I've not heard it in English, but the screen.
Yeah, that's
that's Van Gogh.
Oh, it's Munch. Edvard.
Munch. Sorry,
you pronounce it Munch? Okay, thank you. Munch? I'm really hesitant to use these words speaking with other English speakers too, because I've not heard them in English, and the pronunciation's always different. And just makes me sound even stupider.
Edvard Munch, 1893.
It's based on that, right? And I was like, how do you paint that? Is that a water slide? Because I just could not come from that background. He said, yeah, just draw them with a pencil and then paint it in. Like, no way. That's madness. That's not how you make models. So he pops open the bag of my kit, and I was still a little, if someone else opens your kit, you're a little bit, hey. But,
yeah.
But once you work on this stuff, it's just a product, right? But at the time, I was very precious about it. Hey, you just open my kit, man. But pops it open, grabs a pencil, and sketches the basic outline onto the lid of the mecha suit. And goes, yeah, just paint that. So there's no way I'm painting that. That's a collector's item now. But it was a really, really good. So that was the first meeting, and we kind of kept in loose touch like that. I was very careful not to overstep. The habitual boundary stepping that we sometimes experience in modern life with social media. I was quite careful. I followed up by email, and I was very polite. And we kept in loose contact like that for a little while. Yeah, it was really good. He was very cool about it too. But he's quite difficult to get to. If I had have just gone in first, it wouldn't have turned out as it did.
Yeah, no, it would have been like just a sort of like overzealous fan scenario, right?
Yes.
Where, that's fascinating. We did gloss over. So you're ripping into your first kit to where you're winning the shows. I mean, is
just one show? I've only ever won one show. I've got to be really upfront and honest about that. And then once I won one show, I never competed again.
Was that because you're trying to? It's not like appropriate as trying to be a professional.
Yes, correct. And I did consider it. I'll confess. I'll tell the honest truth. So the next run, I tried really hard again, and I was like, dude, I'm going to nail this again. Watch this. Hold my beer, bro. And when I didn't win, I was quite upset. And I was young and, even less refined than I had to learn to become. Mm-hmm. But they took me aside and they said, no. Haven't you noticed we bring along showpieces, but you can't be in it to win it. Now that you've stepped over this line, these competitions are for our customers. They're very, it's hyper delineated. There's only two kinds of people in the world. There's customers, and then the people that make stuff for the customers. And it's wrong to take away opportunities for customers. Attraction's the word, but it means even more than customer.
I think there's elements of that even in our model social world, even in I've noticed that in very subtle ways. It's not obvious to everybody,
right?
But that certainly once you, I mean, I'm not saying I'm that guy or anything like that, but there's definitely people who are. This is not the time to be entering the models, and when we're trying to do other projects and do other things with it. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Well, they really helped me too, and I thank them a lot. And my wife. Otherwise, I was on a really bad road to that guyism for sure. Because winning a big thing like that, it was the All Japan one. Everybody shows up, and it's the top Gunpla dudes. All of the other genre people come and compete because it's the competition that's the underground real Japan sci-fi modeling competition default. It's got a really weird it's a really weird sort of thing that I was not really aware of until I'd seen them quite a few times and learned who was who. Just as a really funny example, the first one I went to, I think that was 2007, I was standing next to Arakawa-san, who's Wild River, the guy who does the fantastic dioramas. He's done books on them. Again, I'm not sure how famous he is outside of Japan, but people who are really into sci-fi dioramas love his stuff.
I'm sorry, could you repeat his name for us?
Sure. It's Arakawa. What's his first name? But Arakawa, if you just Google on Wild River, Arakawa-san, and he'll pop up. See, you know how it is. We don't use each other's first names there. Oh, I mean, they use my first name, but I use their family names.
Yes, the proper.
Yeah. For some reason,
I know that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is he the guy who does the diorama inside the diorama?
For sure. Anything hyper diorama like that is Arakawa-san. And he does them for Star Wars is one of his real loves. A bunch of different ones like that. So it was that caliber of talent. And I'm standing there complete noob.
Yeah,
And chatting with them like like one-to-one, where I really should not have been like that with them, but ignorance was bliss. They kind of liked it too, because
the novel factor, right?
kind of, but it's also that they usually can't make friends with others, because if they make friends with people, they either want something from them, or they are speaking to them in too differential a way, so as not to be able to establish closeness.
Yes.
But
I think it's something. I think it's something like, there's movie stars or famous people, and that's the concern they have. Public figures, where I've known people over the years to become that, but they're still the person I remember growing up with, and that's nope.
If they know you, if they know you from before they became celebrity, minor celebrity, they will still have that relationship with you and be able to trust you.
Exactly.
But it's when people have stepped over it and more people know them than the standard. Sorry to speak like this, but I admit to suffering a very minor level of that since starting YouTube.
I can understand that.
The process changed from
Well,
and
you know what?
You
And
need
we
to
can say the same thing. We can say the same thing with the podcast, because we have complete strangers come up to us at model shows now, and they recognize us, and it's a little bit different, but it's and I think, as you're saying, I think that's what exactly you pointed out there. You're not like fawning over them and stuff like that. You're being 100% honest.
Right,
and I think,
right.
I
and
think
genuine.
they're essentially seeing that. Yeah, genuine. Yeah.
And the same thing was with Max. And then after I found out who he was like, I'm sorry I was talking like that back in the day. And then I think that was another one of the times he slapped me. Max often hits me.
Really?
Really. He slaps me. He goes, no, don't be like that. Always be the normal one. Don't say son after my name and things like that. I think because the poor guy cannot experience that anywhere else. But listen, for people watching, sorry, I always say watching because I'm a pretend wannabe YouTuber now. But for those listening to the show, don't do that to them, because he'll slap you, but it will be different. Because there'll be follow through with weight and the shoulder behind it. So and he's an ex-boxer. Don't mess with him.
Okay then.
I'm just looking through the. Oh yeah, duly noted. I'm looking through the Wild River. He's not the guy I was thinking of, but his Gunpla stuff is awesome. These are amazing dioramas. There's a very cool stuff. We'll put a link to that because it is pretty
sure. And actually, he used to work in a kind of I don't know if duet is the right word, but there's two of them that have the ara, Japanese character in their name, so it means wild. So there's also Satoshi Araki-san. He's also got the ara. It might be him then. There's a couple, but they used to work together. Anyway, so I don't want to derail it. How good am I for plugging other people in my moment of 10 seconds in the limelight?
Nothing
How good
wrong
is
with
that?
It's all community, right?
And they were really good guys to me. They were the best. They shared their knowledge. They're really good guys. I'm happy to help them out.
That's amazing. Well, Stuart, why don't you do the next one there?
Okay. So let's talk about let's talk about some of the challenges in making a career in Japan and again, I'm going to slaughter it. I'm sorry, as a Gaijin.
Gaijin is correct. Yeah.
Gaijin model maker.
Okay. So the first easiest one that people probably can relate to is that because you're hired local, you don't have any expat privileges. So as you get older in Japan, life becomes increasingly, as we become older in life, any of us, if you have a family, life becomes increasingly expensive, doesn't it? When you have kids and different things. So because I'm hired as a local, so I'm not hired as a gaijin. I was just hired because I was there. So I was basically local. I mean, they would joke about it sometimes. It would office jokes would come up. And but it was all pretty. It was very good, in very good humor. I never had any issues with that. But the main one was making enough money that would match up with the expectations for the family. It was very challenging, hyper challenging. Because my poor little girl wanted to go to school in English, which means an international school. Which
big, very expensive to enroll kids.
And they're not meant to be paid for by yourself. If you're doing that, you're kind of pardon
With
me
a
for saying it this way.
company or
Exactly. If
yeah,
you're paying it for yourself,
or-
you're kind of doing it wrong.
yeah.
They're meant for somebody in the company package to be paying for. So trying to juggle them, that was really tough. But otherwise, I had already lived in Japan long enough. I mean, I met the guys when I'd already lived there 10, 12 years. And
Uh-huh.
after 3 years there, and because this is way back in the dark era, right? No mobile phones, internet was still kind of new. I mean, like early 90s through to the early 2000s, it was quite
Okay.
different now, wasn't it? We didn't have the technological support that we have now that makes
Yes.
visiting Japan very easy. And Japan was a very different mindset. It was still very closed. I mean, we're back to that now, but sadly, but there wasn't that push for international tourism, things like that. So nothing was in English. So it very much
Oh,
was a
they didn't
different
have
world.
like when I was there, they like you could easily get around
Sure.
and all the subway stops and stations, unless you got
Right.
really far out, were all in English. Like they had
Right,
English.
right.
So
So
was it like sort of prior to that?
that was new. So that was
Oh,
new. I remember when they did that, and I was like, "Damn it! I've already spent all the time learning how to read this stuff. I want that life back." So
yeah.
So before that, I mean, especially when I first arrived as a kid, it was back to rudimentary navigation 101. You were counting stations to not get lost.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got to get on this one. Go 4 stations to the north. It was quite different. But challenges working as a foreigner, I didn't experience any difference. I was treated as local, paid as local. My life was just very local. So there weren't actually any real challenges to it.
That's cool.
I imagine if somebody then tried to break in as a gaijin, it would be different.
We should
It's-
so I'm going to interrupt you there. We should clarify for all the listeners the gaijin. What that is all the foreigners that come to Japan. So like when I was there, I was a gaijin worker, and it's not that you were treated badly, but you're treated differently. It was a very sort of arm's length approach to those people. So they're happy. It's like they're happy to have you there, but they weren't really gonna like talk to you the same they would talk to the normal people in their social world. So just a little aside there. Sorry, please continue.
No, you stay in your lane, gaijin-san. Stay in your lane. So remember, you go to your gaijin shops, you do all your gaijin stuff. So yeah. I'm hyper familiar with that. It was my life for 25 years. So I didn't have that, but when we would go to meetings and there would be suddenly new people, they'd walk in and Japanese people, they're hyper restrained, but they'd have this look in their eye. They'd walk in, and even though they were silent and they would just kind of miss half a step, it translated in my mind to somebody going, "Whoa!" when they walked into the room.
Yes,
right?
yeah,
I wasn't expecting them to have their own gaijin.
They're blown away by your presence.
Yes, and they'd kind of sit there awkwardly until it was my turn to speak or somebody asked me a question, and they'd probably be panicking. It'd be like Barry Benson from the Bee Movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I love that moment. It just reminded me so much of when people were expecting me to speak in Japan. He's a little cartoon character, and he starts speaking by going buzz, 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 because he's a bee. and everyone freaks out. And then he goes, "No, I'm just kidding. Please proceed." And it was even funnier because it was voiced by Seinfeld. He makes anything sound funny. It's almost like his career. But so it was kind of like that. But no, and until we went outside of our little team bubble, once everybody was aware, and my little reputation got out, they've got a foreigner working there on the 6th floor. You should go up there. He totally speaks the J. It's like normal, but he looks funny. Go check it out.
So it sort of transitioned from the weird, awkward, that surprise, and then into like the novelty factor of like, and I can talk to him, and he's interesting and foreign. Yeah.
Right, and because I'm there because of Yokoyama-san and Max, it's like it's like being a made man as well. So no one could, because even though I was brand new, no one could mess with you. So it was also a kind of privileged bubble that I didn't recognize until later as well. I mean that for both good and bad reasons. I mean, it's both positive and negative. And then it's embarrassing once you find out. You kind of go, and then
Yeah.
because as you're becoming more and more friendly with the team, and especially when they've got truth serum in them from Asahi,
Yes.
you find out more about
Beer.
it. Yeah,
Good beer,
yes.
delicious Japanese beer.
You kind of go, yeah, I
Was
didn't know. I'm so
Asahi the ones that have the giant yellow? It's supposed to be a drop of beer, but it looks like a sperm, and it's on top of a building. Was it Asahi or was that the other beer brand?
I didn't go to that Japan. I'm sorry.
I'm starting to wonder.
I remember the big Godzilla on the building, big sperm.
It was
not so much.
where was it? It was like their brewery, and they have it's the logo. I'm pretty sure it's Asahi, but they have like a giant like 3-dimensional sculpture of it on the building, and it's supposed to be like it's like a germ of wheat or something, but it totally looks like a sperm. It's like
I'm so gonna Anthony. I'm so gonna ask you for proof of this. You better find it later on.
Man, pictures or it didn't happen. Come on.
I know.
A picture of it because it was well known, and it
like
was
big Godzilla. That's real because that happened. It's in movies.
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly. Yeah, that Gamera. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, aside beer.
No, it's the best. That tangent just made the show. That's great.
I'll look it up as you carry on with your tale.
The sperm on the building episode.
It's a golden
Part 2.
golden wheat.
So, next question, Your Honor.
Okay, I guess we sidetracked you. Okay, we should do a quick SF3D history lesson.
No, please don't ask me questions about it. I don't know it very well. I'm serious.
Because I think we should.
This is the part where I disappoint a bunch of hardcore fans by showing how little I know. Please don't do it.
We need to gloss over because it's all right. I'll do the history lesson.
You can do it,
The
Anthony.
why it happened, is that it?
Yeah.
No. Okay, I know that one. But please, you give me your version, and I can help to fill in any blanks.
Yeah, I think people don't know they may not know or be familiar with that series. You know, it's been around for a long time. So we're talking about
and we were kids or not born or something. Yeah.
Lincoln, you've done a lot of work with this, and we hope to talk about that further. But in this series, and Ko Yokoyama was one of the creators of this while working at Hobby Japan, which is like it's like the fine scale modeler of the Japanese modeling world. It's an amazing magazine, and it was the all-encompassing model mag, so it had everything. And obviously when sort of Gundam sort of took off, there was a lot of Gundam modeling articles in there, but so Ko Yokoyama and company created this original science fiction series, and it was a kind of a very loose world, and they were building models and like kind of create like kit bashing and scratch building their own mecha designs in this sort of fictional future war scenario, and it was called SF3D. And then there were kits licensed and produced by, I know, Wave and Nitto, and they were basically, the different companies were doing different scales, if I recall correctly. Like they sort of had an agreement to like, we'll do 1/35th and you do the smaller stuff and so on. But it changed. Something happened, and it changed to become the Machinen Krieger universe. So I think I call it Mach, but that apparently I think is wrong. It's MAK.
Have I said MAK so far?
I don't know how it's actually should be said.
I of course, it doesn't matter because it's not real. I always have to say that one, and and we don't mind what you call it so long as you buy it.
Yes.
If you pay money for it, you're correct, and we're happy.
Those original like articles in Hobby Japan, I'm talking like it was the mid '80s.
Yeah.
And when I was there in 2007, you could get the model kits everywhere, and they even had little figurines that you'd like put on your desk, and so it was it's been a very long and storied series, tons of model kits, and it's So I mean, okay, tell me how close am I on them? On that?
Yeah, that's a pretty good overview. There's a lot more history, but the basic one is that it's existed since '83. And it's probably going stronger than ever now. And one of the things I've got to get out immediately is that sometimes when people see it, they'll go, "Oh, yeah, that's those kids. I've always wanted to do one, but they're very hard to get." But they're not. They're actually currently in production. They're very easy to get. You've just got to be at the right time and following
I
the right
think
thing.
for a time, the original kits. Now, the original production, they're probably very rare and hard to come by, but they've been since reissued after kind of a long dry spell. Yeah, so you can get anything now.
Kind of. So the Nitto kits. Nitto was the first of the companies to make the kits for them, and he went and he made so much money from the SF3D property. They went gangbusters. Then he decided to make plastic boobs, which did not go so well.
Like sex toys.
Oddly enough, and he started making and one-off very unusual projects instead of sticking with what worked. So he made those giant railguns you know what I mean by railgun that they were trying to shell Paris from.
Like Dora.
Instead of making a bunch of Shermans that worked really well. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he ruined his own business model and then quickly went bankrupt because investing in those large kits, especially back then, was insanely expensive. So that added to the mystique because they were highly available. But the Nitto dude was responsible. He made so many in such a short period of time. That was absolutely floating his business. He would still be in business today, except that he went off the rails and went a bit crazy with it. Made stuff that was just not economically viable. But we see this a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
We see this a lot. There's a lot of people, and I don't mean this plus minus. It's just the hobby industry can often attract people who have no business sense whatsoever. It's purely based on the hobby, the love of the hobby, which is
he might have been pursuing the topics that interest him and not the ones that are marketable.
Right? I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. And that ruined it very quickly. So they must have made a lot because they're popping up for sale all the time. They're just getting a little older now. If younger people were getting into it, kits, they were fantastic back in the early 80s. But
they were like multimedia kits. I have an original Nitto, the 1/87th scale, the nut rocker.
Oh, cool! The little ones. Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kit. Like it's very small. It has it came with photo etch. It comes with like multiple decals on the a beautiful like full color instruction manual with like really cool diorama pictures. It's a very, very well made kit considering it's kind of an old, and I haven't put it together, but just kind of
no. I would keep them as the collector's item. Plus those water slides are only for looking at now.
Awesome.
Let me ask, Lucy, do you think part of it is just a lot more people, particularly they're reaching that certain age, modelers, we're noticing a lot of modelers coming back. Do you think a lot of it's stuff they grew up with?
You mean for the growth of this property or?
Of that particular property.
There's a number of factors to it. I guess some of there's a lot of things happening with modeling, the industry, and with what we're making, isn't there? There's a lot of factors combining.
Yes.
I mean, for the longest time, now, I really hope this is not offensive to some folks because I like making the older topics too. I just recently made a little Messerschmitt, and it was so much fun. It was a little FX one from the starter kits.
Yep.
Yes. I saw that.
It was fun. But how many times can you make the same topics? They're not making any new warbirds per se, right? The subject is not increasing. Plus, it's getting longer away from the people who remember it.
And we've heard similar things. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, you guys would be experts at this more than me, but even dealing with the older Japanese gentlemen, they feel it too. So there's that. Since I was given this is a hard one for me to get into halfway because there's some histories happened between there. But when I had to reinvent myself and my business outside of Japan, part of that was also to then help promote the stuff that I'd worked on previously.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm hearing from people now that they've heard about this property because of the work I've done on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
you become a global spokesperson almost, like to.
Well, I haven't actually
into that world.
I haven't actually updated probably my bio with that, but last year Yokoyama-san actually gave me that title. He said, "You're
Excellent.
now my official." Sorry, what is it again?
Global spokesperson.
I need to write it on my shirt to remember. What's the thing I do again? What is it? I'm a global MAK ambassador
Ambassador.
for machining cricket in English speaking places, or internationally,
Cool.
outside of Japan. And
Wow.
they gave me the title of sensei.
Okay,
That's
very
amazing.
cool.
Yeah,
Which
congratulations. Yeah, that's impressive.
Now go sell some more stuff. That was how it ended. So.
That's typical.
No, he didn't say
Typical.
that, but that was all part of it. So part of the uptake of these kits is actually due to my floundering around trying to figure out how to make YouTube viable.
Yeah.
That's been the real challenge of my life, truth be told.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think it's important because we've talked to other people too, how, thanks to the internet and social media, modeling has become a worldwide thing. It's a worldwide community,
right.
and
Yeah.
there's many lessons we can be learned. One of the things we've constantly told people is because, Anthony has that experience, of being in Japan and that, but how big some of the companies are over there compared to the North American ones, and how literally. Literally, Bandai can release something with 100,000 shots, and something successful for, Western Europe and North America is like 30,000 shots,
Right.
from your Airfix or whatever. People just don't, people in North America and Europe just don't realize how big it is over in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere around the world, until they visit Japan or work in the Japan industry, understanding the scale of sci-fi as it is in Japan.
Yes.
But there are people looking at it now because that they can also see that it's a possible future. I'd even go so far as to say a likely future. But like, for example, at Nuremberg this year, the first time that Gundam has been showcased.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So it's been for the first time. So,
Crazy.
and as we target younger folks, because targeting us old dudes who love Spitfires,
You can't rebrand the customers, right? Like I think a lot of people, it's sort of what was around you when you were growing up and in
it's
those
what you grew up with,
those formative years, right? Those are the things that interest you. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. My dad is an HO train modeler, right? And he, as a kid, he was like, we used to go down and watch the trains. There's a train line near my house. And then his brother, who was 10 years younger, well, guess what big show came on and caught all the kids' attention? Star Trek. And he loved Star Trek and that kind of, those types of like properties of that time.
Right.
And it's very interesting, right? So of course marketing is really about young people's taste and or certainly in certain regards geared to that.
And as you say, it's we've talked before of what they grow up in. Like, we're seeing now re-releases of stuff being done like from, classic good or bad sci-fi from the 70s, like Space 1999. There's some people releasing stuff there, and it's big bucks, and they're just going gangbusters because people like that nostalgia too, and it's what they grew up with.
Right. The largest percentage of so my real role was product marketing for these properties. Well, because that's actually what I do. I make the stuff and then share it internationally. So it's a indirect type of product marketing. So by showing the things, right?
Yeah.
The actual target for it is newer people. So it's not so much because the other one, I really dislike saying older people, mainly because I'm one of them. But it also sounds somewhat ageist as well, which is just not true, because we also are seeing older people coming in and buying Gundam kits, Gunpla.
Yeah, I think it's not an age difference. It's that traditional versus non-traditional modeler, which I hate. That it drives me a little bit nuts. And that's what I loved about Japan. I loved going to a hobby shop where they had everything. They had all the World War II tanks, all the airplanes, all the Navy stuff, all the Gundam, and it wasn't like, what's this weird stuff? It was just like, hey, this is what all the car stuff, it was all kind of just treated equally as insane, right? Like, people loved it all. And that's the big thing I've noticed is that, growing up in the 80s, 90s, aughts, couldn't find any of the anime model kits. If I did, it was super expensive. I'd bring them to a club or show. People would look at me sideways, and I just always rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't care that much, but the underlying sense of like, yes, I love all that stuff. Like, yes, I have a Tomcat. Yes, I'm gonna build like Canadian armor, right? But I love Gundam, and I just that was one of the really great takeaways from the Japanese model culture for me, was that they were just like, hey, we love plastic models.
Well, I think we're seeing some of that a little bit more too, as as we've had through our podcast and the other, the boys in Australia and Kentucky. It's like people are very much. I'm seeing a lot more willingness to be open to try new things. Yes, you still have at the local clubs and that, you sometimes you have the old guys who are grumpy or whatever, but you find that everywhere. But there's a lot more people willing to try new things.
Yes. That I'll be honest too. That's part of the mission. That's part of one of the overarching themes I've tried to instill into my YouTube channel. I mean, there's only so many ways we can get the message out. I found YouTube relatively, it's going okay, but yeah, it's that idea of they're just models. Yes, you can specialize and know something very well and very deep, but it's also fun to work on other ones. As an interesting inside example for you on that, so Yokoyama-san and Max often hold. They're quiet. We don't share the work to the public, but I often get invited to small build groups that go for a short period of time, where we make an airplane badly. So, because the sci-fi stuff's our work, so I'll get a ping from Yokoyama-san who'll say, "Hey Link, have you made a lightning yet?" I'll go, no, actually I haven't. He goes, "Okay, here's this group. We're just going to build lightnings, and you've got to be finished like in 2 weeks and make it really badly."
Interesting.
And as badly as possible, because that's another one of his things about doing things quickly as a skill builder. And Max will do them too. With Max, we had a recent one that was do a Messerschmitt 262.
Okay.
And just belt it out, make it really fast and bad, but don't show it, because we kind of can't show bad work. That's why there are no close-up photos of that Messerschmitt I just did.
It's a brand, right? Like you
gotta build
correct. The brand.
Correct.
Are these just like stress reliever exercises?
Yeah, I think so. And it's fun between. We want to be modelers too. I know that sounds funny, but yeah, we want to make and not make it well. and make it and laugh about it. So like the little Messerschmitt I did it exactly like one of those projects. It was a couple hours building, about a day and a half just slapping paint on it.
Wow.
It's got all of the seam lines are still awful. I broke some parts. It's the colors are wrong, but I loved that project. It was so much fun.
Well, and I think
it's still all right. I mean, if I did close-up photography and shared it so that it was competing with 132 scale, it would look
not that
horrible.
kind of project.
Well, this is why I subscribe though with those builds. You go back to the 5-foot rule. How does it look from 5 feet away? I think as well, the other thing you'll find is if you're working, especially when you're doing something as a career, sometimes it becomes too much of a job and it becomes less fun. So I think this gives you and your colleagues an opportunity to just have fun again.
Yeah, de-stress and get out of your head a little bit.
Yeah, because I can see doing
and making
that.
fun of each other is the best part.
Yeah, exactly.
And having fun with each other's fails. Like, oh, look at this! I fingerprinted it. Something like that. And you leave the fingerprint on purpose. You say, look, that's a Da Vinci now. I fingerprinted it.
There you go. Funny. It'll be worth billions one day. I think it's true. Sometimes you just have to. Like I do that. I sometimes get bogged down with some complex build, so I'll just find something really simple and belt it out.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly it.
As you can see, just a fabulous part. It was tough to find where to break that one, because he was just, there were so many good stories and fascinating, like I said, behind the scenes there in Japan and that. So, so next episode, we'll have part 2 of our interview with him. So moving on, talking tools tonight. I think this is one you put in, epoxy glue. I don't know if are you talking 2-part epoxy?
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
5 minute. Oh, I'm living with this stuff.
All right. Tell
I'm
us
living
all
for it.
about it. Tell us
Oh,
all about it.
okay. Every modeler's gotta have some of this stuff.
Yeah, I've used it.
I mean, for years and years. I've been using like JB Weld,
Yep.
clear weld, quick setting epoxy. So it's a 5 minute. It's like a two-part. There's a hardener, and then there's like the epoxy resin.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is there's a chemical reaction when they mix, and then they set and they become very hard. And you can get different working times. So like this is a 5 minute I have, for example, which I will send you a picture of. But you can get like 10 minute, 30 minute. I recently just bought a set from Bob Smith Industries that I think is more geared to model builders.
Okay.
I'm gonna look at it, but it's a 5 minute quick cure epoxy. It's got a hardener and a resin. And yeah, I haven't tried that one, but
Bob
I'm looking
Smith
forward to it.
Industries, the one that they
Yeah,
use. They have the CA glue. It's quite good.
yeah, they're one. So they're like a distribution company. I don't really know the whole story. I'm gonna say just that I'm somewhat sure, because you can get that glue from other sort of
Okay.
distribution companies. But yeah, it's geared for model builders, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
what you get where you're going to use epoxy is if you're building any resin kits, epoxy is what you use when you need something not to to really stick and not fall apart.
Right.
So if you're doing resin kits, oftentimes resin pieces are not hollow.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put together the airframe on an airplane polystyrene kit, it's basically an empty shell, right? You put your
Right.
halves together, there's nothing in there. But when you have a resin kit, it's a solid piece, the way it's created, the way it's cast and made. So you can start imagining bigger kits or whatever, they can start to weigh a bit. So you need something really tough to glue pieces together. Epoxy glue is the way to go. Anything else that you really need to stick? Even smaller details you can do with epoxy. I use a ton of it. I'm working on I'm just about to wrap up the Quincy Row kit from Moscato Hobby Models, and
Right.
this thing weighs a couple pounds.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
You've mentioned that. It is a huge kit. Last
Yeah,
time I saw it when you were putting
and
it together.
I'm thinking of, because like super glue. Okay, you think super glue is a very strong glue, right? And it
Mhm.
is in certain ways, but it has like really low shear strength. So,
Right.
for example, let's say you've painted up a mini that's lead, right? That's a
Mhm.
common that was a common
Yep.
material, and you glue it on a little base and a little setting. Well, it's so easy to hit it sideways, it pops off, right?
Mhm.
So you need to, I mean, one of the techniques to sort of avoid that kind of mishap is to, put pins in, and then, you would screw holes in, add a little like brass rod or parts of a paper clip, and then, drill other holes into the base, and then add your glue, and then you've got this sort of mechanical attachment plus the glue attachment. And but when you get to anything bigger,
Mhm.
the epoxy glue has that hold and that grip.
Right.
And geez, I'm trying to think what other weird ways, but certainly any resin kit, it's very helpful. But I
Yeah.
know I've used it on a bunch of projects recently. If
Yeah.
let's say you're mounting an airplane on a rod, because you want to have in a flight pose, for example. So it could just be a polystyrene, your Tamiya, BF 109. You're like, you're gonna, if you want it something that with a mounting rod, or there's like maybe you have a telescoping piece, so you have like a larger diameter piece of rod hidden inside, and then you stick another one in so you can take the model off the stand.
Mhm.
We glue all that stuff inside with the epoxy glue, because it's going to give you that serious hold. So I know like JB Weld, Clear Weld, I've been buying that. I'm going to say about 10 or 12 Canadian dollars at Home Depot.
Okay.
And the one I bought from the Bob Smith Industries from Wheels and Wings was closer to $20, but it's a larger volume of stuff.
Mhm.
And we'll see how it smells. This glue often stinks, so like I
Yep.
don't like the smell.
I've seen different ones over the ages, and some do, and
Yeah,
some are better than others. So yeah,
use
exactly.
a fan is
Oh
kind of
yeah, definitely.
one
Well
like to
regulated.
note. Yeah, just to kind of be aware of the safety concern. But you just the key to that glue is to mix it really well. Like really, I keep a bunch of popsicle sticks in a bag, and sometimes I'll carve them to a point or something, but just have those handy and you mix them on a little pallet.
Right.
I like to use like little like when you buy a concentrate orange juice, frozen orange juice, you pop off the metal lids. I save those and they make little nice pallets. But you really gotta make sure you mix the two parts.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
And mix it really well, and then you get an excellent hold that will resist like a little bump. You know what I mean?
And that's what it's got that little bit of flexibility that it will
and
absorb a little bit.
If you're like I think a lot of people use super glue thinking it's sort of strong or will work in a function in a way that it's not meant to. And then you get those breaks and you take it to the show or something and something pops off and you're like, I thought I had that with super glue.
Yep. Well, you say it's strong, but it doesn't have the shear. If it's hit in an opposite direction, and there's a whole series, we could probably get an expert in here to talk about it for half an hour about it, but that's it exactly where the epoxy has that. I often say it's that little bit of give, that it won't just immediately shear and snap.
Yeah, like you can't. I think that like super glue has a good strong bond like directly, if you know what I mean, but it doesn't have that shear strength. So like a sideways hit will knock it off, right? Or becomes brittle, and then you drop something and it kind of fractures apart. Whereas the epoxy's not coming off. That's the other thing. You gotta be so careful with it. And I've noticed that it does that static thing where you're approaching. You've got some on your applicator, so let's say a carved down toothpick or a popsicle stick, and you're getting close. I don't know if it's just an atmospheric thing, but you get close and then it kind of jumps off in like a spider web.
Right.
You ever had that problem?
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's something to do with static electricity, I think. But you gotta be nice and slow, and I always approach kind of on the back end or away from the finish ends, and just take your time and be really careful about it and mix it. But it's such a handy thing. Certainly I can't live without it. Without it.
There you go. Yeah, I use it more than I do, but I have used it, and exactly. It's got all sorts of interesting uses. Yeah. Okay, moving on to what's on the bench. So I haven't had as much time as I was hoping for, but I am making good progress on that Italeri Skyhawk. As I mentioned previously, I have now got a set of decals. They're originally from an F-86 and an option for the Golden Hawks, but they are Canadian Air Force decals. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a what if of this. So the one I'm building is probably going to be an A4F in Canadian Air Force markings. And so main fuselage, most of it's together. A little bit of filling was required, but nothing too obscene. I told you I did have the issue with the instrument panel deciding to take a trip inside.
Oh, yeah.
But I have, I've got the front end of the canopy masked. I used the bare metal foil. The back end, I was going to use the bare metal foil, but the area where I need to mask, it's very subtle and I couldn't quite see it. So I'm just going to mask that one manually, I think. But yeah, once that's done, it'll be ready for a coat of primer. And yeah, just continuing along. So again, nice simple kit, not a lot of bits. It kind of surprised me when I got to this point. Oh yeah, okay, all I've got left is the landing gear and drop tanks and stuff like that. So yeah, coming along nicely.
Yeah, I feel this has been a quick one for you, I think.
Yeah, it's a simpler one too, Not as much fiddly bits, which I have to admit I'm enjoying, and it's just the right size in 48. The Skyhawk's not a big aircraft.
Yeah,
it's a nice size 48. It's like building the World War II Spitfires. Like I do have some larger stuff.
Yeah,
I've got the Tamiya A10, the F14, and the F15 in that scale, and they're going to be bigger builds. But this one's a nice fit, and like I said, the assembly hasn't been bad.
Yeah.
A few, like I said, putting on the conformal little hump on the F model has been a bit challenging. There was quite a bit of filling there, but again, the perfect plastic putty just is great for that sort of role. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically it. I've been really good about not doing anything else. I should, there'll probably be a Shelf of Doom one. I should get that Lancaster.
Yeah.
I really should. But we'll see. We'll just see what comes up next. There's a bunch of different ideas. I have no shortage in the stash. I don't have a huge
Mhm.
stash, but there's certainly no shortage of different subjects either. So
Nice.
we'll see what comes out. What about you,
Yeah.
sir?
Well, I actually wanted to ask you a question before we move
Hmm.
on there. Now
Yeah.
that you've done a whole bunch of 70-second recently in recent
Hmm.
memory, and you're doing this 48 scale hawk, are you finding that it's as advertised in terms of like it's just easier to build 48 scale? You can see it
Well,
better.
for me, I'm finding it easier now. What's interesting is our friends at Plastic Model Mojo
Hmm.
got into a little conversation about this because, as we all know, Dave down there, Kentucky
Hmm.
Dave, he thinks
Kentucky Day.
he says God's true scale is 72nd scale,
It's true.
where
Scale of the
Where
gods.
Mike builds, a slightly larger one. But they brought up an interesting point, and it's true, particularly on some of the newer toolkits, where if you're talking about strictly size of parts, that doesn't really change because as you move up to a larger kit,
Mhm.
they can put more fine and detail parts in, right? And some of these parts will be very small. Now, this Italeri kit does not have that. The cockpit, I think, was 5, 6 parts.
Oh, oh,
You know,
but it's an older build, right? And you kind
yeah,
of
it's
knew
an older
that
build, but I do
going
know
in.
some of the newer builds. It's not necessarily a case of the parts are always going to be bigger the larger the scale you go, because they can add more parts and add more detail. Like
Yeah.
you look at the Airfix 124th scale aircraft they build, especially that brand new one.
Yeah.
The individual parts for the engine, there's some fiddly pieces.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me as much, but I do find, like I said, this one's fine. And as I said, I'm really enjoying it because, yeah, there isn't as much fiddling. It'll be interesting once I get to the decals, particularly the stencils,
Yeah.
because modern planes, they have a lot of stencils. This one
Now, are
obviously,
they
but
fairly
they are
visible?
big. Yeah, yeah. We'll see in 48 a bit more. And again, you can still do a lot, but they're easier to manipulate and handle. Like, for
Mhm.
example, the Airfix Phantom in Royal Navy service that they were
Mhm.
released a couple of years ago, that thing probably has 100 tiny stencils in 48. Now, those ones, you don't see them beyond 3 feet. It's the same
Yeah.
thing when I finished the Valkyrie. There's some stencils I didn't put on because if I don't see them from 3 feet away, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get bogged down in 100 something decals. It's
Yeah.
funny. I used to enjoy decaling more. It's not my favorite part now. It's not the
Mhm.
worst, but it's certainly, because again, and this is what I've heard other people say, you want to get the kit done at that point. You got to avoid trying not to rush because you want to get it done.
Yes.
So it's easy to get a little bit of burnout, but no, this one, the decal sheet's fairly, substantial, and it'll have some stencils in that. But I think I'm certainly enjoying going back to 48 scale,
Hmm.
and not to disappoint, any of the 72nd scale fans. I'm likely to build a few more of these for a while before I dip my toes back into 72nd scale, other than the Lancaster,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
underway. And it's funny, I'm just looking over at the stash and, I've still got a few 72nd, but there's quite a few 48th in World War II. There's at least 3 Spitfires there.
Yeah.
I'd love to I've got a Mosquito. I'd love to build another one of Airfix's Hurricanes in 148th.
Yep.
That was a great build if I ever find a good deal on that.
You'll jump.
So yeah, there's certainly no shortage. I've got a bunch of armor in 135th. There's even the odd ship one. There's another Gundam. There's always
Hmm.
interesting sci-fi stuff coming out. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't have any shortage. It'll be interesting if I start building some of the bigger jets. Like I've even got an F-16 in 48 scale, and that's
Oh
not bad.
yeah.
But a lot of it's display space. Where do you put them? I don't have an unlimited display space, so
Yeah. Yeah.
then decisions have to be made. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting interesting to see. So
Yeah.
anyway, speaking of large kits, you've got a couple of
Oh
big
man.
ones you're building right now.
Yeah. So I'm really at the very end of the Quincy Row build, which is it's been really fun. I've
Mm,
used a lot of epoxy
you're
on this
enjoying it.
thing.
You're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's great. So I'm just doing the final weathering. So I'm using oils. I'm really enjoying the oils right now. I know there's other cool, like I have the weathering pencils. I haven't busted them out yet. I've got some other AK, like those enamel washes and
Mm-hmm,
stuff.
mm-hmm.
I'm loving the oils.
Good for you.
Most of it's so big that like it's just taking days. I mean, by days I mean like the sessions where I sit down for an hour or two, but it's really close to being finished. All the sub assemblies are like together and done. Like so, the arms are separate. The legs were. I've actually attached one entire leg assembly. So with the foot, I glued the feet into the legs, and I've glued one leg onto the sort of the body or airframe or however you want to say it. And I've got to weather the other leg and some more of the main torso. It has these kind of big bulbs that are like there's missiles inside them, and then it has like it's like a jetpack, I guess. Yeah, it's very close. And I already did the base up ahead like earlier on. I spent a lot of time doing the base electronics, so it's all ready to go.
Awesome. Now, do you find you enjoy, like, it's one thing I do enjoy. I do enjoy weathering. Do you find that's one of your most favorite parts of the build?
Yeah, I gotta say it's sort of a weird thing, but I love when you just start painting, like the initial coats.
Yep.
Because if it's going well, and I hope everyone has that experience where like you start laying some color down, and you're like, oh, this looks great. That's an awesome feeling. It's sort of later on where you're like, oh man, I'm doing stuff, and I sure hope it still looks good because it was looking so good at the beginning of this painting phase. There's that pure joy where you're putting all the greens on, and it's doing some fading and some lightning and some shading.
Yeah.
It was just really looking great.
It's funny. I have mixed stuff when I'm learning a new technique. You're always wondering, and I often find learning a new technique on armor a bit more forgiving.
Yes.
Just because you can put mud on it than aircraft. But yeah, I do find the same thing. I find it very zen-like sometimes when you get everything going well, and like I said, using the AK pencils and the oils and things like that, you can get and again, a lot of it's practice. There's nothing wrong in practicing a new weathering technique on a sacrifice kit. I've done that. I've got a very old, one of the first model kits I ever built as a kid, an old Airfix 72nd scale Spitfire.
Yeah.
That's missing, 2 tail planes, but I've been practicing for ages, the AK weathering pencils on that. So there's something to be said about it. Yeah, everyone has their favorite parts, and
for sure,
weathering's up there for me.
Isn't every kit, like even if you're doing sort of tried and true techniques that you've spent time on, you've done before, but every kit is kind of a sacrificial chance, right? Like the things go as expected, right? So,
but it's usually you can recover too, though.
Yeah, I'm happy to report it is looking good, and I'm pretty happy with the way it's come out. It's going to be it's huge. It's the biggest thing I've ever built, I think.
Well, we're looking forward to some pictures.
And then the next thing I need to wrap up is the M72 Gabriel, also from Moscato Hobby Models. That build is coming along, although not as fast as I would like, but it's coming, and I'm almost done.
That's good.
I was just actually slamming together a base for it. I kind of had an idea of setting it in the paint scheme is going to be the red Murdoch.
Okay.
So it's kind of like it's sort of a desert camo or a arid climate. You know what I'm talking about? It's got red and desert colors. So I have to put it on a base and add a little landscape terrain to it. So I put that together over the weekend, and it's busy. It's lots of cool stuff, and there's tons of things I want to tear into, but I'm kind of holding back.
Oh, I know. I'm doing the same. And it is a busy time of year. Summer's starting, and you have the kids in the gardens to take care of and all that, and I'm kind of the same. So quite often modeling does a little pause, but I do try and take the time. Definitely stuff like that. Okay, moving on. Our last section, things we've seen. I happened to see this one. Hale Wallace, who runs modelairplanemaker.com. We've talked about him before. Yeah. He has a really good blog post this week about tips and tricks for modeling aircraft cockpits. But what I wanted to point out with this one is he also mentions here, and it's something I subscribe to. You remember you heard me say, if I don't see it from 3 feet, I don't care. The 3 feet of the 6 foot rule, and it's very true. He talks about things like be strategic about about detail. Like you can detail and weather things, but if it's all hidden in the end, if you feel good about that and you want to do it, great. but also then don't complain if it's taking so long.
Well, I was just gonna say, you could probably, if you're gonna go to that kind of extreme, sort of the edge, could you have maybe got 2 projects done where you don't worry about the
Well,
hidden
yeah,
stuff?
and this is what they say. Like he's got some examples here from things like firewalls, and then they look great, but you're never going to see it once the canopy's closed.
I think I read the same one. It was interesting. He always
Yeah.
is quite he writes thoughtful, interesting blog posts, and they do kind of help put things in a perspective.
Yeah, and he gives a full how he paints it. So the one that really struck me was because he's working on an AH-64 Apache, and the cockpit there is black, but he never paints cockpits black. He
Right.
uses a 50-50 mix of NATO black and RLM gray. Because if you have a black, it goes invisible. So
Yeah,
he gives a full on tutorial with pictures about how he does it.
Mhm.
And it's very good, and you'll see that there.
That's
He
a key
talks about.
thing. That's a key thing that like there is no white and black, right? Like
No.
they don't really sort of exist in nature. So it's getting around that to where it looks correct.
Yeah,
and using
this
colors.
is what I do. Yeah, like again,
Yeah.
and I think this is what burnt me out with that Lancaster. I spent so much time with the photo etch in the cockpit, it just burnt me out. And then you realize, once it's closed up, you don't see a lot of it. And that's why with the Skyhawk cockpit, I really didn't add too much else. I literally just put the decals for the instrument panels on the side panels. At least you can still see the side panels. But and once the canopy's on, a lot of it's going to be hidden. This is one I've definitely bookmarked because I want to go back and, especially when I do some World War II stuff again, with what he's done with some of these, it's quite interesting. So, his is a blog I definitely bookmark, and I get notified on my RSS feed when he has a new post, and it's one of the ones I definitely keep an eye on. So definitely check his work out. We'll have to get him on sometime for an interview too. I think he'd be a fun interview. Okay, so I think that's about it. We are an hour 34, not including our interviews, my friend. So this is like a mega show. Once again, we seem
Aren't they all mega shows?
They are. Well, that just shows us how much we talk. So, anything else before I go into the standard trailing end of things?
Just stay safe. Wear your masks. Wash your hands. Take care of each other.
Exactly. So, as always, for more bottling podcast goodness, check out our friends at On the Bench, Dave, Julian, and Ian in Australia. They've gone back to their once every 2 week schedule. And also Mike and Dave way down in Kentucky with those bourbon sipping, banjo picking guys, as the Australians like to call them, at Plastic Model Mojo. And again, they're due roughly every 2 weeks as well. Always interesting stuff there. But we always want to hear from you. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions. Don't forget to subscribe at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. By subscribing, and you can subscribe through our website, you get notifications of all our updates, new episodes, and video content. The Scale Model Podcast is recorded bi-weekly, and it's available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, as well as our website at scalemodelpodcast.com. And as I said, the website contains show notes and also pictures. And I guarantee there's no pictures of us there right now, so you're safe. We do publish extra video content, complete episodes on our YouTube channel, and that's where you get our links to our videos we do once we open it up after the Patreons have a chance to. And as always, if you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review. It does help get it out to more modelers. We have a Facebook page, like and subscribe there. And last but not least, as we've already mentioned a couple times, please support us on Patreon. We really appreciate it. Patreon supporters enjoy early access to content and exclusive content. So that is it. So for episode 48 of the Scale Model Podcast, my name is Stuart Clark.
And I'm Anthony Goodman.
Thank you, and be well.